of the highest level and would be useful for all of us. I'm glad to welcome you at the Eastern Economic Forum.
Владивосток – столица Приморья, а теперь и всего Дальневосточного федерального округа России в пятый раз собирает глав ведущих стран Азиатско-Тихоокеанского региона, крупнейших инвесторов, бизнесменов, представителей общественности и экспертных кругов. В этом году мы принимаем свыше 8,5 тысяч участников из 65 стран. По сравнению с первым форумом, его представительство увеличилось более чем вдвое. Видим в этом убедительное свидетельство растущего интереса к российскому Дальнему Востоку, к тем возможностям для сотрудничества, которые предлагает этот, без всякого преувеличения, колоссальный регион. Сила, конкурентные преимущества Дальнего Востока —
and hardworking, energetic people, educated and ambitious young people. Those are new centers of science, industrial growth, and industries of the future. Those also include the rich reserves of natural resources, broad logistic opportunities such as the Northern Sea Route and other trans-Eurasian routes. And finally, that's the proximity with the fast-growing economies with the most dynamic region, that is the Asia-Pacific region. Naturally, when we adopted the long-term strategy for the development of the Far East in the middle of the 2000s, that is 15 years ago, we focused on the maximum degree of openness for the region, for it to be closely integrated into the economic, transport, educational, and humanitarian space of the Asia-Pacific region, and if we look at it more broadly, of the whole world. For the development of international and border cooperation, investment and technological partnerships, and that is for the creation of new opportunities, first and foremost for our citizens, for their work and for their life. That was indeed a sharp historic turn. I would like to remind you that at the start and in the middle of the 20th century, and then during the years of the Cold War, many Far Eastern territories, for example, the Vladivostok itself, where we find ourselves today, had mostly military significance and were, as we said back in the day, restricted areas. This was also reflected in the development of those regions. Social and economic development was lacking. And I would like to highlight that over the recent years, the situation has changed drastically, and we are proud that the Far East has become one of the symbols of the openness of Russia, of innovation and determination, and eliminating all kinds of barriers for business and human communication. Undoubtedly, we understand that such a result would hardly be possible without strengthening the atmosphere of trust and constructive cooperation in the Asia-Pacific region as a whole. We want these positive trends to be developed further so that our common region would be safe and stable. Our relationships with India, China, the Republic of Korea, Malaysia, Mongolia, Japan, and other countries of the Asia-Pacific region are based on the principles of respect and honest dialogue. I'm convinced they have great prospects which tally with the growing role that the Asia-Pacific region is to play in the coming decades. I believe that all those gathered here, the high-level guests that we have with us today, would agree with that. On par with openness, we also have one more key principle of our massive plans to develop the Far East of Russia, and that is their long-term and consistent nature. We concentrate our resources and step by step we administratively boost our efforts. We reach our goals and we set new tasks before ourselves. We always strive for more. Over the last 15 years, we have managed to set the conditions so that the Far East would be on the track of advanced growth. And those are not just words. I can provide you some proof. A great beginning for such a work was the preparation for hosting the APEC summit in Vladivostok in 2012, we have invested great resources in modernizing transport, business, and educational infrastructure in the city, in improving the capital of the region as a modern, dynamic city for people, as one of the scientific and educational centers in the Asia-Pacific region. Of course, we understand that a lot remains to be done, but we have also achieved a lot. And then, based on our achievements, we will launch major infrastructure, transport, industrial projects. And at the same time, while we try to improve business climate in our country, we have also proposed drastically new, in many aspects, unique instruments of support for business in the Far East, which are globally competitive. I would like to address all our colleagues who are going to invest in the Far East of Russia. Please use these opportunities. You should study them once again. Those are not just promises. This is actual practical steps which already function. So in the region, we have 20 priority development areas for social and economic development with special conditions for industry, preferential tax treatment, and government support measures. We have already 369 registered residents there, and they have struck deals for more than 2.5 trillion rubles, and they have, we will provide more than 60,000 new jobs. They have already invested 344.8 billions of rubles in investment and created 19.5 thousand jobs. Now we have the free port of Vladivostok, which spans across 22 municipal entities, and its purpose is to help the integration of the Far Eastern regions in the economic space of the Asia-Pacific region. They will help to boost our high-tech industries. The advantages of the free port were already used by 1,404 residents that have signed their agreements, business deals, for 700 billion rubles, and they are going to create 68,000 jobs. They have already invested 95.2 billion rubles and created more than 10,000 jobs. This is a fact. And in overall, thanks to the measures of support, starting from 2015, the investors have already invested 612 billion rubles into our economy, and they have launched 242 production facilities and created more than 39,000 new jobs. As a result, we have the growth of industrial production in the Far East. It currently stands at 23% over the last 5 years, and this is 3 times higher than the average in the country. The center of new competences, exchanges between the young people and international cooperation, bold experiments in educational, science, new technologies. That is the Far Eastern Federal University, where we are gathered here today, as we are always gathered for this forum. And last year, 20,000 students studied at the university, and among them 3,500 foreigners from 74 countries of the world. More than 200 professors from abroad are teaching at the university, and we plan to further develop research infrastructure at the university, including the mega science lab construction. We can be sure that the university in the future will be a part of the backbone of the joint educational space of the Asia-Pacific region. Dear friends, at the previous Far Eastern forums, we have talked about the significance of the Far East for Russia, about our plans and tasks to develop it, of the instruments of support for business, how we can tap into those instruments. I have briefly spoken about this in my address today, although we understand, and just now with my colleagues during the working lunch, we talked about that without the people, without their energy, without their talents, without their interest in achieving results, no such goals could be reached. So in my address today, I'm going to focus on social and economic development and the social program of development for the region. I believe it would be interesting not only for the people in Russia, but also for our potential investors who already work here in Russia. That would mean that we would create a favorable social and economic climate, and thus we would attract the needed labor resources. So yesterday, together with the leaders of the Far East region, we discussed new stage of development for the Far East. And the point is to convert the economic gains of the recent years into a social growth spurt, into better quality of life for the people. So we need to have changes in healthcare, education, in improving cities and villages that would be felt by millions of people. And such changes should be felt not only in some distant future, as I have already mentioned, not only years later, but very, very soon. And I would like to highlight that compared to 2005, the migration outflow from the Far East has decreased twofold. We need to turn the tide, and the Far East should not lose, but gain more people with their energy, power, and initiative. So I would like to go back to our talk at the working lunch. We discussed this topic, and my colleagues actually raised this question. What is the outflow of people from the Far East? That is indeed a very important question from the moral and ethical point of view, and from the economical point of view as well. This region should be attractive for qualified personnel and for the young people, because the young people are our future. Even more so that the Far East is a very young region of Russia. It has great demographic potential, which we need to keep and multiply. The overall birth rate is higher than the average in Russia. Out of 8,200,000 people living in the Federal District, almost 1.5 million are school children, students, and college students. They have victories in various sports competitions, international and all-Russian scientific competitions. For example, recently Kazan hosted World Skills Junior, and the gold medal was won by the 9th grade Andrei Mishkov from Ulan-Ude. He was the best when it comes to information technologies, and once again I would like to congratulate him on that. So we have talented, gifted, creative people here in the Far East. They are capable to take on the world and reach ambitious goals. So the first and key task for the new development of the Far East is to support the young people, to do everything in our power so that the young people would have the broadest opportunities to get education, find themselves in life and in professional setting, to start a family and raise their children, so that they would make their contribution into development of the Far East so close to them. And first and foremost, we need to boost the volume of construction, modern construction that is, and it should be affordable for the people. And yesterday, with my colleagues, the leaders of the region, we discussed this very question, and we want to launch a special mortgage program in the region. And young families could take a mortgage to buy a flat or a house in the Far Eastern regions only under 2% interest rate per year. And recently, we have a preferential interest rate in mortgage that is a 5% interest rate. And my colleague said yesterday that it was not enough. And I would like to tell the leaders of other regions that it is not possible to do all around the country, and that would actually have no effect, because this measure is there to attract highly qualified personnel to the Far East of Russia. We need to launch this program this year, and it would last for 5 years. And why? Because we need to define and earmark the financing and the sources of financing in future, because this is a long-term program. We need for it to cover the first stage market, that is the new construction, and for individual construction for those people who have taken the Far Eastern Hector, the so-called Far Eastern Hector, as the source of financing. We can use the money from the state program of the development of the Far East. And our healthcare system should be modern and accessible and affordable as well. And this primarily concerns the primary healthcare, the closest to the people. And the informatization and equipment of the medical centers, the first aid and obstetric centers, and maternity hospitals, and our air medical service is very important. This is required for the development of the Far East. We have observed this all over Russia, but here in the Far East, we need to create a truly efficient healthcare system which could be comparable and even would be better than the traditional practices and standards. This is not a thing we can do in a day, but we need to start today and start with the innovative pilot projects. Indeed, we need to create a medical cluster in the federal Far Eastern district with a special regulation setting that would allow us, without excessive formalities, to open branches and divisions of international medical centers to attract the best experts and to use the medicines and methods that have proven effective abroad. This should function within the framework of the Russian jurisdiction. All nuances have to be worked out by the relevant agencies and ministries, and first of all with the Ministry of Health of the Russian Federation. I have said multiple times that for the Far East we need to have special measures, advanced mechanisms and flexible instruments which take into account the peculiarities of those massive areas and the demands of people who live here. We have decided to be experimental, innovative when it comes to economy, attracting investment, and we have yielded a quite positive result, as I have already said. We need to act in the same key when it comes to social development. I ask all the federal agencies, all the colleagues who are involved in developing the region, to be led by this very logic, by the interests of the Far East, and that is the entire country. An important step for strengthening the educational awareness raising and humanitarian space of the country should be the opening of a new cultural, educational and museum complex here in Vladivostok. But at the same time, we need to drastically upgrade the whole network of museums, libraries, theaters, cultural centers, leisure centers, additional education centers in the Far East of Russia to make them vibrant, interesting, modern centers which would attract people of all ages, children and young people. We have just discussed this very question. I mentioned our prior meeting for the third time, and Mr. Shinzo Abe here said about the attractiveness and the tourism potential of the region. Yes, indeed, creating such a major all-Russian cultural and awareness-raising center with branches of our leading museums, such as the Tretyakov Gallery, the Hermitage Museum, the Russian Museum, the Mariinsky Theater branch, would undoubtedly increase the tourism potential of the region multifold. It is especially important, that is, the development of culture for the small cities here, and I would like to give you a few numbers. Out of 1,834 populated areas of the Far East, 1,614, those are areas where less than 1,000 people live, more than 5 and less than 1,000, and the distance might reach up to hundreds of kilometers. So we need to take that into account as well, and we talked about it with the leaders of the region. We need to adapt our all-Russian programs, such as county doctor and county teacher, to the conditions of the Far East. For example, we might increase the payments for physicians, physician assistants, teachers, especially those who come to the very small villages in the Far East. We can increase those payments compared to the average in Russia for the Far East twofold. And undoubtedly, we need to think about the future. It is closely linked to the young people and children today who love their region, who want to live and work here, they need to receive quality education regardless of their income and their status. That is why we need to provide employer-sponsored education and special budget-financed openings for highly required specialties, so that the young people would be sponsored by the budget, but also by the potential employers, and they could be certain that jobs await them and they would be guaranteed to get a job. And the young people and people of all ages should have the opportunities to access distance education, as well as telehealth, information resources, and electronic public services, digital platforms and services which open up new horizons for the creation and launching of their own business. I would like to remind you that more than half of internet users of our planet live in the Asia-Pacific regions, and that is why the Far East should meet the standards of the digital infrastructure which are set in the world, including the high-speed internet coverage. I would like to ask the government to take that into account when implementing the national program Digital Economy of Russia. We need to have a digital environment which is comparable to the scope of challenges of our time and rapid technological advancements. That is why our second important strategic task, the Russian Far East, should become one of the global centers of high technologies and competences, new industries, and new areas of production. That is the focus of the leading quality jobs for well-qualified professionals. Thank you. And first and foremost, for the people living in the Far East, for those citizens of Russia who live here in this region. And this is our principled position. We have the groundwork laid for that. And here on the Ruski Island, we have a massive innovative cluster. We are also advancing our space industry around the spaceport of Vostochny. Aircraft construction and gas processing is also developing here, as well as chemical industry. We are continuing to create the Zvezda shipbuilding plant, and we are going to focus on increasing the exports of deep processing products. Again, this is our principled position, and I would like to draw the attention of Russian and foreign investors to this, the residents of advanced development areas and the free port of Vladivostok. So we increase the export taxes for roundwood, for example, but at the same time, we are ready to back those who want to invest into boosting our capacities in timber industry. At the same time, we create the preferential treatment for export of the ready-made products, including on the markets of third countries. In the same logic, preferences and support in exchange for deep processing will be used in other areas, including maritime resources and mineral resources. As for safeguarding and careful use of our forest resources, this is a very important topic, and we should consider it in the scope of the entire country at the special meeting of the State Council. We understand the creation of a massive scientific and industrial center in the region is a colossal challenge. At the same time, this provides us great opportunities, and it's indeed very broad. So the benchmark of demands when it comes to efficiency of our measures and solutions should also be on par. At the same time, this involves the economy of the future, the support of young teams who implement disruptive ideas and solutions. All around the world, startups led by young people are a massive locomotive force for technological development, so that the number of startups would not only go up, but so that they would grow and turn into medium-sized and then into large companies. We need not only legal support, we also need regulatory environment as well as efficient financial instruments. So I suggest that we create a special venture capital fund in the Far East. We talked about it yesterday, and I agree with that. So I would ask the government to come up with special proposals, because we have financial resources to support that. And the third strategic goal that we set before ourselves is also very ambitious, and it is in line with the global environmental agenda, with the challenges that not only Russia, but also the entire planet faces today. We are talking about the development of the Russia's Far East as a global natural and tourism center, as an international experimental ground where we could test various approaches to resolving the most important issue for all of us. That is how to strike the proper balance between economic activities, the development of ecotourism, accessibility of nature for the people, and at the same time safeguarding our unique ecological systems. And today, the unique beauty of the Far Eastern areas attracts hundreds of thousands of tourists. In 2016, the region was visited by 5.2 million people, including 750,000 foreigners. And last year, almost 7 million people, and around 1 million of them were citizens of other states. The reaches include the Lake of Baikal, the Kronetsky Natural Reserve in Kamchatka, the National Park Alhanai in Zabakalya region. All in all, there are 64 designated conservation areas in the region of federal significance, and I would like to highlight that I have already tasked my team to count and to define the borders of all those conservation areas, national parks, etc., etc. We need to accelerate this work all over the country, and in the Far East, we need to do that first and foremost. Then we need to launch the PPP projects in tourism, to invite responsible investors, to offer them a preferential regime while keeping in line with the criteria of ecotourism. And we need modern information resources so that the people could swiftly and conveniently receive all the necessary information, when and where they can go, what tourist route they should choose, and foreign citizens could also receive their visa very rapidly. And by the way, here in the Far East, we have first introduced the e-visa system. This has facilitated the formalities for foreign tourists and entrepreneurs, and over 2 years, we have already issued more than 140,000 of such visas. All the development goals and the modern quality of life standards need a new level of mobility, and for the Far East, this is first and foremost a developed air traffic system, accessible tickets for flying inside the region as well as to Siberia and Central Russia and abroad. Up to 2024, 40 airports would be reconstructed in the Far East, and to expand local air traffic and to upgrade the fleet of regional and local planes and helicopters, we need to use the capacities of aircraft plants in Lanode, Komsomolsk, on Amur, and Arseniev. And the priority for all aircraft companies around the world is safety, security, and comfort. And for those companies working in the Far East, one more priority should be affordability of tickets. I guess it would be only rational that their companies who want to expand their presence in the Far East should have responsible and rational pricing policy, and they would have preferential access to clients in a much more advantageous routes. We have talked about it with the Minister of Transport, and this system works in practice, and probably we need to have it set in various documents. And for this region, this is well justified, and we need to think up of regulations to set it in stone, so to say. Dear friends, we have massive goals to develop the Far East. Major goals always translate into partnership and uniting our efforts. And we want to have such cooperation open for those who are interested in it. And we believe in the future of our cooperation and the future of the Far East of Russia. But for us to be successful, as well as to be successful all over our country, we need for the society and community to be consolidated and to be ready to pitch in and to make a contribution and their energy to the overall result. We have such an environment that all plans and all dreams will come true, even the boldest ones. I would like to wish every success to the participants of the forum and all the best. Thank you for your attention.
Спасибо.
Thank you.
Mr. President, if I may, just a short clarification. Almost in one sentence, you managed to identify the key drivers of development, the true diamonds, I would say. Komsomolsk, Namora producing the most modern planes, more factory, and the Zvezda shipyard, and the advanced development territories. By saying that, do you believe that foreign investment might also go to such venues like Zvezda shipyard and the space launching facility? Certainly. Speaking of the airplanes factory, they already exist and there are foreign investments in place. We know it very well, and the whole world knows that we have our amazing fighter aircrafts, Su-30 or 34, world-renowned 2 pluses, Su-35, and the 5th-generation aircrafts 57. But Superjet, Sukhoi Superjet, is something that has been produced by us together with our Italian and French partners. We are working on that, and we are open for foreign investment. We have nothing to hide. Although we do have something to hide. Yeah, but we'll be very cautious in closing the type of information that is to be restricted. But at the same time, we have all the opportunities to successfully develop our cooperation. As for the space launch facility, it's not a military facility, it is a civil one. And we're discussing who should be the one constructing the next stages of it. But generally, this space launch facility is designed to do the launches for civil purposes. We therefore believe it is not just possible to work together with foreign partners. We're very much interested in that type of cooperation, and we very much invite them to participate. We already have joint projects with India in the space area. We actively collaborate on that with our colleagues from People's Republic of China. We have good cooperation with the European Space Agency. And we hope that in the future it would develop even further. We work with the United States as well. We are doing quite a lot of launches in the interest of our partners and also in the interests of the United States. And those launches are planned to be shifted to the Vostochny space launch facility. So I do not see any single area that could be closed for cooperation with our foreign partners. On the contrary, we're very much interested in engagement of that type, including the Zvezda shipyard. We visited it just yesterday with Prime Minister Modi. Of course, we'll be constructing the most advanced high-tonnage vessels, and there will be all type of services that are suitable for working on the shelf in the Arctic zone, and in particular for transportation of LNG and oil products, any type of cargoes and freight. And yesterday we discussed it with the Prime Minister that we'll be searching for opportunities of joint work. Probably there might be some specific vessels that be constructed here. It is an international cooperation that is flourishing in this way. So some of the vessels could be built in Russia, while some of them might be completed at the shipping yards in India, and a renowned leading Russian company in the area. Rosneft, an oil and gas company, is the owner of one of the largest processing facilities in India. They purchased the controlling stock lately, one of the biggest refineries, and that includes one of the largest seaports in India. So we have a lot of potential points for cooperation. There are no issues that are closed for cooperation. On the contrary, we're very much interested in that. Thank you. Before I give the floor to Prime Minister of India, I'd like to emphasize that President Putin slightly commented on some things that were discussed between him and Prime Minister Modi in a one-to-one meeting. When I took a look at the agenda of the meeting, I thought, think of a situation when an Indian businessman decides to come to Vladivostok, and the shortest journey would be via Korea, and it would take around 18 hours or up to 20 or 23 hours. Obviously, the speed of reaching India from Vladivostok and vice versa would be much faster if that is a maritime route as suggested by Prime Minister Modi between Chennai and Vladivostok. And today we see this type of high connectivity emerging. Mr. Prime Minister Modi, please take the floor.
Excellency, President Putin, President Batulga, Prime Minister Abbot, Prime Minister Mahathir, friends, Namaskar, Dobry Din. व्लादिवोस्तोक के शांत और प्रकाशमय वातावरण में आपके साथ संवाद करना एक सुखद अनुभव है। सुबह का उजाला यहाँ से होकर दुनिया में फैलता है और पूरी दुनिया को ऊर्जावान बनाता है। मुझे पूरा विश्वास है कि आज का हमारा यह मंथन केवल फार ईस्ट ही नहीं बल्कि पूरी मानव जाति के कल्याण के प्रयासों को नई ऊर्जा और नई गति देगा। इस महत्वपूर्ण अवसर को मुझे हिस्सा बनाने के लिए मैं अपने मित्र राष्ट्रपति पुतिन का आभारी हूँ। राष्ट्रपति जी ने मुझे यह निमंत्रण भारत के आम चुनाव से पहले ही दे दिया था। 130 करोड़ भारतवासियों ने मुझ पर विश्वास जताया और आपके निमंत्रण भी उनका विश्वास और मोहर लग गई। फ्रेंड्स, 2 साल पहले राष्ट्रपति पुतिन ने मुझे सेंट पीटर्सबर्ग इकोनॉमिक फोरम में आमंत्रित किया था। यूरोप के फ्रंटियर से पैसिफिक के गेटवे तक मेरी भी एक प्रकार से ट्रांस साइबेरियन यात्रा हो गई है। व्लादिवोस्तोक यूरेशिया और पैसिफिक का संगम है। यह आर्कटिक और नॉर्दर्न सी रूट के लिए अवसर खोलता है। रूस का करीबन 3/4 भूभाग एशिया है। फार ईस्ट इस महान देश की एशियन आइडेंटिटी को सुदृढ़ करता है। इस क्षेत्र का आकार भारत से करीब 2 गुना है। इसकी आबादी सिर्फ 6 मिलियन है, लेकिन यह रीजन खनिज, ऑयल और गैस जैसे प्राकृतिक संसाधनों का धनी है। यहाँ के लोगों ने अपने अथक परिश्रम, साहस और इनोवेशन से नेचर की चुनौतियों पर विजय पाई है। यही नहीं, कला, विज्ञान, साहित्य, स्पोर्ट्स, इंडस्ट्री और एडवेंचर, मानव गतिविधि का ऐसा कोई एरिया नहीं है जिसमें फार ईस्ट के लोगों ने, व्लादिवोस्तोक के बाशिंदों ने सफलता हासिल ना की हो। साथ ही उन्होंने रूस और उसके मित्रों के लिए भी अनेक अवसर बनाए हैं। फ्रोजन लैंड को फ्लावर बेड में बदलकर एक सुनहरे फ्यूचर का आधार तैयार किया है। कल राष्ट्रपति पुतिन के साथ मैंने स्ट्रीट ऑफ द फार ईस्ट एग्जीबिशन देखा। यहाँ की विविधता, लोगों की प्रतिभा और टेक्नोलॉजी के विकास ने मुझे बहुत ही प्रभावित किया है। इनमें प्रगति और सहयोग की अपार संभावनाएं मैंने महसूस की हैं। फ्रेंड्स, भारत और फार ईस्ट का रिश्ता आज का नहीं, बहुत पुराना है। भारत वो पहला देश है जिसने व्लादिवोस्तोक में अपना कॉन्सुलेट खोला। तब भी और उससे भी पहले भारत और रूस के बीच बहुत ही भरोसा था। सोवियत रूस के समय भी जब अन्य विदेशियों पर यहाँ आने पर पाबंदियां थी, व्लादिवोस्तोक भारतीय नागरिकों के लिए खुला था। रक्षा और विकास के बहुत सा साजो सामान व्लादिवोस्तोक के जरिए भारत पहुंचता था और आज इस भागीदारी का पेड़ अपनी जड़ें गहरी कर रहा है। दोनों देशों के लोगों के लिए सुख समृद्धि का सहारा बन रहा है। भारत ने यहाँ एनर्जी सेक्टर और दूसरे नेचुरल रिसोर्सेज जैसे डायमंड में महत्वपूर्ण निवेश किया है। सखालिन के ऑयल फील्ड्स भारतीय निवेश की सफलता का एक उत्तम उदाहरण है। फ्रेंड्स, राष्ट्रपति पुतिन का फार ईस्ट के लिए लगाव और उनका विजन इस क्षेत्र के लिए ही नहीं, भारत जैसे रूस के पार्टनर्स के लिए अभूतपूर्व अवसर लेकर के आया है। उन्होंने रशियन फार ईस्ट के विकास को नेशनल प्रायोरिटी फॉर द 21st सेंचुरी घोषित किया है। उनकी होलिस्टिक अप्रोच यहाँ जीवन के हर पहलू को, इकोनॉमी हो या एजुकेशन, हेल्थ हो या स्पोर्ट्स, कल्चर हो या कम्युनिकेशन, ट्रेड हो या ट्रेडिशन, हर एक को बेहतर बनाने का प्रेरक प्रयास है। एक और उन्होंने इन्वेस्टमेंट के रास्ते खोले हैं, तो दूसरी ओर सामाजिक सेक्टर्स पर भी उतना ही ध्यान दिया है। मैं स्वयं उनके इस विजन से प्रभावित हुआ हूं और इसे शेयर भी करता हूं। भारत उनकी इस विजनरी जर्नी में कदम से कदम मिलाकर रूस के साथ चलना चाहता है। मैं अपने अनुभव के आधार पर कह सकता हूं कि फार ईस्ट और व्लादिवोस्तोक के रैपिड, संतुलित और समावेशी विकास के लिए राष्ट्रपति पुतिन का विजन जरूर कामयाब होगा, क्योंकि यह रियलिस्टिक है और इसके पीछे यहाँ के मूल्यवान संसाधनों और लोगों की असीम प्रतिभा है। उनके विजन में इस रीजन के लिए और यहाँ के लोगों के लिए सम्मान और प्यार झलकता है। भारत में भी हम सबका साथ, सबका विकास, सबका विश्वास के मंत्र के साथ एक नए भारत के निर्माण में जुटे हैं। 2024 तक भारत को $5 ट्रिलियन की इकोनॉमी बनाने के संकल्प को सिद्ध करने में जुटे हैं। तेजी से बढ़ते भारत और उसकी प्रतिभा की इस रीजन से भागीदारी एक 11 बनाने का ऐतिहासिक मौका है। फ्रेंड्स, इसी मोटिवेशन से हमने ईस्टर्न इकोनॉमिक फोरम में हमारे पार्टिसिपेशन के लिए अभूतपूर्व तैयारी की। कई मंत्री, 4 राज्यों के मुख्यमंत्री और करीब 150 बिजनेस लीडर्स यहाँ आए। उन्होंने राष्ट्रपति के विशेष दूत, फार ईस्ट के सभी 11 गवर्नर्स और उनके बिजनेस लीडर्स से मुलाकात की। रूस के मंत्री और फार ईस्ट के बिजनेस लीडर भी भारत आए। मुझे ये बताते हुए खुशी रही है कि हमारी इन कोशिशों के बहुत ही अच्छे परिणाम आ रहे हैं। एनर्जी से लेकर के हेल्थ, एजुकेशन से लेकर के स्किल डेवलपमेंट, माइनिंग से लेकर के टिम्बर, अनेक क्षेत्रों में करीब 50 बिजनेस एग्रीमेंट हुए हैं। इनसे कई बिलियन डॉलर्स के व्यापार के निवेश की अपेक्षा है। फ्रेंड्स, फार ईस्ट के विकास में और योगदान देने के लिए भारत $1 बिलियन की लाइन ऑफ क्रेडिट देगा। यह पहला मौका है कि हम किसी देश के क्षेत्र विशेष को लाइन ऑफ क्रेडिट दे रहे हैं। मेरी सरकार की एक्ट ईस्ट पॉलिसी ने ईस्ट एशिया को एक्टिवली एंगेज किया है और आज की यह घोषणा एक्ट फॉर ईस्ट का टेक ऑफ पॉइंट साबित होगी और ये मेरा पक्का विश्वास है। यह कदम हमारी इकोनॉमिक डिप्लोमेसी में भी एक नया आयाम जोड़ रहा है। मित्र राष्ट्रों के रीजन्स के विकास में हम उनकी प्राथमिकताओं के हिसाब से एक्टिव भागीदार बनेंगे। फ्रेंड्स, भारत की प्राचीन सभ्यता के मूल्यों ने हमें सिखाया है कि प्रकृति से उतना ही ले जितने की जरूरत है। हम प्राकृतिक संसाधनों के संवर्धन पर विश्वास करते हैं। प्रकृति के साथ यही तालमेल सदियों से हमारे अस्तित्व और विकास का अहम हिस्सा रहा है। फ्रेंड्स, जिन देशों में भारतीय डायस्पोरा है, वहाँ के लीडर्स जब भी मुझे मिलते हैं, भारतीयों के श्रम, ईमानदारी, अनुशासन और निष्ठा की भरपूर प्रशंसा करते हैं। भारतीय कंपनियों ने, कारोबारियों ने दुनिया भर में कितने ही क्षेत्रों के विकास में योगदान किया है, वेल्थ क्रिएशन का काम किया है। साथ ही भारतीयों ने और हमारी कंपनियों ने स्थानीय संवेदनाओं और संस्कृति का हमेशा आदर किया है। मुझे पक्का भरोसा है कि भारतीयों का पैसा, पसीना, प्रतिभा और प्रोफेशनलिज्म फार ईस्ट में तेज विकास लाएंगे। ईस्टर्न इकोनॉमिक फोरम में भारत ने पार्टिसिपेशन के जो उत्तम परिणाम आए हैं, उन्हें आगे बढ़ाने के लिए मैं फार ईस्ट के सभी 11 गवर्नर्स को भारत आने का निमंत्रण देता हूं। फ्रेंड्स, मैंने और राष्ट्रपति पुतिन ने भारत रूस सहयोग के लिए एम्बिशियस टारगेट रखे हैं। हमारे संबंधों में हमने नए आयाम जोड़े हैं, उनको विविधता दी है। संबंधों को सरकारी दायरे से बाहर ला करके प्राइवेट इंडस्ट्री के बीच ठोस सहयोग तक पहुंचाया है। उनको राजधानियों से बाहर स्टेट्स और रीजन्स तक ले गए हैं। हमने हर क्षेत्र में सहयोग को अपनी स्पेशल एंड प्रिविलेज स्ट्रेटेजिक पार्टनरशिप के सांचे में बढ़ाया है, ढाला है। हम मिलकर स्पेस की दूरियां भी पार करेंगे और समंदर की गहराइयों से समृद्धि भी निकाल के ले आएंगे। फ्रेंड्स, इंडो पैसिफिक रीजन में सहयोग का नया दौर हम शुरू करने वाले हैं। व्लादिवोस्तोक और चेन्नई के बीच जब शिप चलने लगेंगे, जब व्लादिवोस्तोक नॉर्थ ईस्ट एशिया के मार्केट में भारत का स्प्रिंग बोर्ड बनेगा, तब भारत रूस की साझेदारी और गहरी होगी और फलेगी और फूलेगी। तब फार ईस्ट एक और यूरेशियन यूनियन और दूसरी ओर ओपन, फ्री और इंक्लूसिव इंडो पैसिफिक का संगम बनेगा। इस क्षेत्र में हमारे संबंधों का मजबूत आधार होगा रूल बेस्ड ऑर्डर, सॉवरेनिटी और टेरिटोरियल इंटीग्रिटी के लिए सम्मान और अंदरूनी मामलों में दखल से परहेज। फ्रेंड्स, मशहूर फिलोसोफर और लेखक टॉल्स्टॉय भारत के वेदों के अपार ज्ञान से बहुत प्रभावित थे और यह वेद वाक्य तो उन्हें बहुत पसंद था। एकम सत विप्राह बहुधा वदंती। उन्होंने अपने शब्दों में इसे ऐसे कहा था, ऑल दैट एग्जिस्ट इज वन, पीपल कॉल दैट वन बाय डिफरेंट नेम्स। इस वर्ष पूरा विश्व महात्मा गांधी की 150वीं जन्म जयंती मना रहा है। टॉल्स्टॉय और गांधी जी ने एक दूसरे पर अमिट प्रभाव छोड़ा था। आइए भारत और रूस की साझा प्रेरणा को हम और मजबूत करें, एक दूसरे की तरक्की में और अधिक भागीदार बने, अपने शेयर्ड रीजन और विश्व के स्टेबल और सिक्योर भविष्य के लिए मिलकर के काम करें। ये हमारी साझेदारी के नए अध्याय की शुरुआत होगी। मैं जब भी रूस आया हूं तो भारत के लिए यहाँ प्यार, मैत्री भाव और सम्मान ही पाया है। आज भी इन्हीं भावनाओं का अनमोल उपहार और गहरे सहयोग का संकल्प यहाँ से लेकर के जा रहा हूँ। मैं अपने मित्र राष्ट्रपति पुतिन का विशेष धन्यवाद करना चाहूँगा। हम जब भी मिलते हैं तो बहुत खुले दिल से और बहुत समय लेकर के मिलते हैं। कल अपनी तमाम व्यस्तताओं के बीच उन्होंने मेरे साथ अलग अलग स्थानों पर कई घंटे बिताए और रात के 1 बजे तक हम एक साथ रहे। मेरे लिए ही नहीं बल्कि भारत के प्रति उनके मन में जो प्यार है वो उसमें झलकता है। मुझे यहाँ की और भारत की एक और सांस्कृतिक समानता दिखाई दे रही है। मेरे होम स्टेट गुजरात में बाय बाय की जगह, बाय बाय नहीं कहते हैं, बाय बाय की जगह आवजो कहते हैं, जिसका मतलब है आप फिर जल्दी आइए। यहाँ कहते हैं दसवीं दानिया। तो मैं आप सबको कहता हूं आवजो, दसवीं दानिया। बहुत बहुत धन्यवाद। स्पासिबा बलशोई।
Владимир Ильич, губернатора можно командировочные оформлять 11 дальневосточным как?
For the trips of the governors, they should go to the accounting office. Mr. Prime Minister, one quick question from the news. Unfortunately, there is a reason why the turnover between Russia and India can grow even more. I heard that in the news, Indian people have fallen under the sanctions of the United States. These are the companies that are involved in oil trade. What would you say about that?
You are a good journalist. You have really couched your question in very interesting words. Between India and Russia,
वो हर क्षेत्र में फला फूला है। भारत का ऑयल एंड गैस के क्षेत्र में इन्वेस्टमेंट है, रशिया की कंपनियों का भी खास करके टेक्नोलॉजी ट्रांसफ़र, डिफेंस मैन्युफैक्चरिंग, एनर्जी के क्षेत्र में अभी अभी इन्वेस्टमेंट हुआ है। तो हम दोनों देशों के बीच में ऐसी कोई रुकावटें नहीं है। जो आपका तीसरा सवाल है, जो बिल्कुल एक पत्रकार के हैसियत से आपने बढ़िया ढंग से पूछा है, मैं समझता हूं कि दुनिया के अंदर इस पर बड़ी डिबेट चल रही है कि जो जिस देश के लिए सैंक्शन लगते हैं उस पर इसका कितना प्रभाव होता है वो एक बात है, लेकिन उसके कारण दुनिया के अन्य देशों पर जो प्रभाव होता है, विश्व की ओवरऑल इकोनॉमी जो प्रभाव होता है, उस पर आज विश्व में गहरी चिंता भी है, चर्चा भी है।
Ну, давайте вернемся к иранской теме, потому что мы мимо нее не пройдем чуть попозже. А сейчас все-таки у нас часть, связанная с официальными выступлениями. И президент Монголии, который только что принимал Владимира Владимировича у себя. Пожалуйста, президент Баталга, прошу вас подойти к сцене. К подиуму, к трибуне.
Ну, он может и на подиуме выступить. Посмотрите, как он выглядит. Все-таки чемпион мира по самбо.
He's world champion in sambo wrestling.
баярлалаа. Ингээд Улсын улманы ерөнхийлөгч Владимир Владимирович Путин, Япон улсын ерөнхий сайд Шинзо Абе, Бүгд найрамдах энтэг улсын ерөнхий сайд Нарендра Моди, Малайз улсын ерөнхий сайд Махатир Мохаммед мөн та бүхэн хатагтай ноёдоо та бүхэнд энэ өдрийн мэндийг хүргье.
President Putin, Prime Minister Shinzo Abe, Prime Minister Narendra Modi, Prime Minister Mahathir Mohamad. This is the third time that I participate in this forum. This is a great venue for negotiations, and it is a platform for development of the Far East region. It is also a place for collaboration between Asia-Pacific region countries. We have a good tradition that was established during this forum. Leaders of different industries come together to talk about their business and to create new partnerships. I would like to share some of my thoughts about the growth of collaboration between our economies. This is the main theme of this forum. Our citizens communicate through social networks. Communication is very fast. We, the leaders, have the responsibility to improve the quality of our economies, improve the situation with the development, and fight poverty. There are various technologies and solutions that we can use to give our citizens better lives. I encourage you to think about the opportunities to eliminate problems and barriers that stand in the way of achieving this goal. We need to support various business projects. We need to implement the most modern solutions and optimize use of resources. We believe that it is essential to act today to overcome problems and red tape-related obstacles. I am fully supportive of all initiatives in this sphere. There are some economic problems, though, where we have to walk away from politics. Ladies and gentlemen, it's good to hear that we're here, and President Putin visited Mongolia 2 days ago. We have taken our relations to a new level, to the level of comprehensive partnership. We want this partnership to become a good example for others. Mongolia is a landlocked country, and the ports in the Far East of Russia play a big role for the development of our trade with other parts of the world. That also is a way for us to attract foreign investment. Once again, I want to say thank you to the President of Russian Federation, Vladimir Putin, for creating great conditions for transit shipping opportunities because of our geographic location. To use these opportunities, the government of Mongolia decided to open a representative office in the city of Vladivostok. This is going to be a good contribution to expansion of our trade and economic relations. We want to increase trade and collaboration with Eurasian region countries. We are working together on signing of a free trade agreement between Mongolia and Eurasian Economic Union. We are confident that a free trade agreement would play a big role in reducing tariff and non-tariff barriers to trade, and it would help us to fully use the resources of our economies. To increase integration, we launch joint infrastructure projects with Russia and China. We want them to be as effective as possible. We have a joint program of building an economic corridor between the three countries. We are implementing this economic corridor, and this is going to put the regional cooperation on a new level. We work very hard in this direction. This is a joint Mongolia-Russia-China mechanism. Last year, I proposed to establish a coordinating body in the interests of building a Northeast Asia energy supergrid. We have spent a year working on this issue, and we had a number of events in our region. As a result, the government company responsible for energy is now working on the feasibility study of projects of supergrid. We are preparing all it takes to produce and market electricity. Erdonez Mongolia and Rosseti have signed an agreement on cooperation in this field. In Northeast Asia, there are 4 big consumers of electricity. Mongolia can provide inexpensive electricity. This is going to be good for the competitiveness of our region. Residents of our countries will enjoy inexpensive electricity. President of Russia has supported us, and Chairman of China has said that he would look at the possibility of building a transit lines for electricity in our region. Ladies and gentlemen, Mongolia encourages production of goods for export. We want to increase the volume of trade with our partners. We want to diversify our exports. We want to sell high added value products. We have developed standard contracts for international cooperation. This standard contract should help us to protect investors' rights and make their work profitable. This would help to support growth. At the same time, it would also make our development sustainable and environmentally friendly. Mongolia keeps its doors open for all those who want to do business with us. Ladies and gentlemen, Mongolia is working quite hard. We respect the rule of law, and we're going to create values and share the value that we create with our partners. The basis of our collaboration is free trade, regional peace, and stability. Our goal is to develop collaboration based on trust. I wish you every success in the forum. Thank you very much for your attention. Mr. President, you might remember that I have traveled a lot around Siberia. I have recently visited Mongolia, and they told me a story. It's a fairy tale that the president has mentioned, and then he did not quite finish it. Russia, China, and Mongolia, the country of winds and a lot of sunshine, which is great for alternative sources of energy. They made up this story of supplying energy to the countries that consume a lot of it, to both Korean states. There are issues with North Korea, but that is a different story. And to Japan. The suppliers are ready for that. Potential buyers, though, are not ready yet. And at that point, our guest from Mongolia interrupted his story, and he switched to the subject of trust, of which there is not enough. Mr. President, what exactly did you mean when you were saying that? There are 3 countries that produce electricity. We have a lot of steam coal. More than 30% of consumers of electricity are located in Japan, in Korea, and in China. If we can have a solution on the matters of security on the Korean Peninsula, that brings about the issue of electricity exports. We have developed a feasibility study, and we are prepared to collaborate with Rosneft. We have a feasibility study on building transmission lines. We did this work together with China, and I hope that the relations between Korea and Japan are going to improve soon. I think we will be selling 1 kilowatt at less than 8 cents. And this is a very good price for consumers. I understand it's not relations between Russia and Japan. It's the relations between Japan and Korea. I just wanted to make it clear because it tells us a lot about great potential for cooperation. With excellent relations between today's panelists, we may not have sufficient trust between our countries. That is just something that I wanted to mention in the context of things that we may bring up later. A person who did very much indeed to increase the level of trust, Prime Minister of Japan, Mr. Shinzo Abe, over to you.
President Putin, thank you very much for inviting me here today. It is a pleasure to be with you again this year here in Vladivostok. Mr. Briskly, I am very happy to share the stage with you once more this year. And to all the leaders joining us on the stage, I know each of you very well. And everyone here is someone to whom I wish to express my heartfelt respect. Prime Minister Narendra Modi, Prime Minister Mahathir, President Batulga. I find it fascinating that what brings together the 5 of us, including President Putin, is Vladivostok. My colleagues here on the stage, what do you think? What you can envision with us is a grand connection among us all by a line drawn with a single brush stroke. It is the swift flow of water from the Arctic Ocean through the Sea of Japan and the South China Sea connecting to the Indian Ocean. It is powerful, billowing waves. I will assert in a loud voice that, ladies and gentlemen, the future is with us here. It is precisely here where our unbounded potential lies. This year, I have once again come to speak of the future and its potential, to speak exclusively of the future and its potential. Ladies and gentlemen, allow me to quote a 4-line poem you all know. Russia cannot be understood with their mind alone. No ordinary yardstick can span her greatness. She stands alone, unique. In Russia, one can only believe. And in which way should one deal with Russia? Let us now replace Russia in this famous poem with Japan. If it is in Japan that one can only believe, what and how exactly should one believe? To this, I will offer 3 points. As for what is Japan, the first is a vanguard. This is because Japan has no choice but to tackle earlier than anywhere else in the world problems that all of you will face at some point, such as the aging of society. The second point is an extension of the first, and that Japan is solutions. Japan can offer a wide range of solutions to the problems you are facing. The third point is that Japan is a partner. It is a country in which you can place your trust. Once Japan makes a promise, our posterity too will uphold it without fail. President Putin, Vladimir, the audience here might not know that the summit meeting we just had was our 27th. It's essential for them to have a solid understanding of this fact. Ladies and gentlemen, it's important for you to know that President Putin and I have had meal together time and time again, and as a result, we are friends who have, as you might say, eaten a pood of salt together. Only then can you see that we have our agendas that are overlapping. On your end are the 12 national projects. These are a number of undertakings that President Putin is making all-out efforts to promote. This is something I and the Japanese government know very well. That's because we have looked into them thoroughly. The reason we looked into them is that we wanted to consider how Japan can cooperate with Russia in what areas in order to yield the greatest effects. This is something President Putin and I say every time the two of us meet, that Japan-Russia relations hold unlimited potential. So my government turned its attention to what kinds of undertakings would be ideal to make that potential bloom and propel Japan-Russia relations into the future. Please take a look at this slide. On the left-hand side, you will see the 12 projects that Russia is promoting. On the right-hand side are the 8 points of Japan-Russia cooperation currently underway. Health and population, improving housing, cities, and the environment, small and medium businesses, labor productivity, and supporting employment. Please take a good look at where a red thread connects those items laid out by Russia on the left with the various areas of cooperation promoted by Japan on the right. The 8 points of Japan-Russia cooperation were selected in the hope of becoming one solution for Russia's national issues. What you will see next is the interim report regarding that cooperation. It is a short video, 2 minutes and 40 seconds long.
Russian-Japanese collaboration plan, 8 points. Japanese and Russian doctors have done remote examination of children suffering from cancer. The tumor is now smaller. This cooperation helps us to find new methods of treatment. We did a Japanese rehabilitation training for a woman who could not walk without a stick. I was limping all the time, and now I can walk. A joint Japanese-Russian healthcare program on obesity prevention. After 3 months, there was a serious weight reduction of 13.6 kilograms, and waist diameter was 9 centimeters smaller. In the past, they took waste to a landfill in Tokyo. Then several garbage incinerators have been built, and that reduced the volume of waste taken to the landfill. A similar technology is going to be built in Moscow region. It is expected that Japanese companies are going to make a contribution in Arctic LNG-2 project. This is going to help increase production. In Sakha Republic, a wind farm has been built. Japanese technologies were used as basic technologies for that wind farm. If it works well, then we're going to build similar wind farms in other parts of the country. In Amursk, they finalized the construction of a plant making wood pellets. We're planning to make the first shipment to Japan. In these greenhouses, they use artificial light and plenty of sensors, which reduces the period of growth by 1/3. Russian and Japanese students communicate a lot. Once I graduate from a Japanese university, I would like to get a job here. I would like to work internationally. In the future, I will have a job that will involve bringing urban development experts from Japan to Russian cities.
I have been the producer of this video. Thank you very much. What do you think? Thank you. What in that was interesting to you? I particularly liked the woman who became able to walk quite briskly even without using a cane. According to a survey done of Japanese people's walking speeds, the 75-year-olds of today walk at the same speed that 65-year-olds did 10 years ago. In other words, over the past decade, Japan's elderly reversed their aging by 10 years. I can't help but break into a smile imagining that Japan's cooperation will enable even one more elderly Russian man or woman to walk briskly. Japan wants to show that kind of bright future and limitless potential to ordinary Russian people living ordinary lives. That is a hope we always cherish. Let me tell you some bigger stories now. First is the story of an enormous waste treatment facility. The need to modernize waste management is one area President Putin emphasized in his annual presidential address to the Federal Assembly. Ladies and gentlemen, this July, a company that is part of Japan's Hitachi Zosen Group received an order for a waste incineration plant outside Moscow. It will be able to process up to 7,600 tons per day. As it incinerates these 7,600 tons of waste daily, it can simultaneously generate enough electricity to supply 1.5 million people. This means that under this calculation, over 10% of that city of Moscow's electrical demand will be covered through the incineration of waste. Next is about Japan's car companies. Each of them is increasingly interested in Russia. Toyota is using 20 billion rubles until 2028 as additional investments into its St. Petersburg plant. At the same time, it is revamping its suppliers' manufacturing lines and enhancing the technical abilities of the people who work there at the plant, aiming to widely introduce what is known as the Toyota Way. Hino Motors, one of Japan's biggest truck manufacturers, is currently constructing a plant on the outskirts of Moscow. It plans to manufacture medium and light-duty trucks at a scale of approximately 2,000 vehicles annually. Mazda Solar's auto plant here in Vladivostok, which President Putin and I toured last year, started manufacturing engines in July this year. With what is said to be an annual production capacity of 50,000 units, this is an important plan for Mazda's global strategy. And now I will share with you the most exciting story. It is the dynamic development of Arctic LNG, ice-breaking LNG tankers, and transshipment on the Kamchatka Peninsula to head to countries around Asia. When I spoke to you last year, this was still in the planning stages. At the Yamal LNG facility, where Japanese companies were involved in the design and the construction, 3 LNG trains have all now begun production and export, and finally in June, the facility managed to achieve its first shipment to Japan. Japan's major marine transportation company, Mitsui O.S.K. Lines, has readied 3 ice-breaking LNG vessels and is committed to the success of Yamal LNG exports. There is also the Arctic LNG 2 project. This past June, it was decided that Mitsui and Company and the Japan Oil, Gas and Metals National Corporation, JOGMEC, would invest in this massive LNG project, whose annual production capacity is at a scale of 20 million tons. Japan will become one of the leading stakeholders, and before long I expect a buyer of the LNG produced there. Once the LNG moves beyond Kamchatka, the battle against ice becomes unnecessary. So there it can be transshipped to ordinary tankers. When this comes to fruition, it will be the realization of a grand connection among us, drawn with a single unbroken line, a free and open Indo-Pacific, and the Arctic Ocean where Russia is pushing forward with development. For the first time in human history, these 2 seas will become one, and a magnificent physical distribution highway will come into being. Examples like the ones you have seen here are but a small part of a much greater whole. The number of private sector projects born out of Japan-Russia cooperation over the past 3 years easily totals more than 200. While I am no Fyodor Chuchev, there is only one way to interact with Japan and to repeat, that is to believe, to place your trust in Japan. Trust is born between one person and another and connects one person with another. Over the past year, Japan and Russia continued our cultural exchanges to an extent unprecedented in the history of our relations. Let us spread this energy all around each other's countries. This is something that President Putin and I decided this past June. We will make 2020 to 2021 a year of Japan-Russia regional exchanges. The government of both our countries will be involved in exchanges between one region and another, for example, between sister cities. Incidentally, the number of people in Japan interested in visiting Vladivostok is increasing. My coming here every year may also have helped somewhat. Regardless, the number of tourists from Japan, especially women, has increased. And in response, Japan's two major airlines will both launch direct flights connecting Tokyo and Vladivostok. Starting this month, we will issue multiple entry visas for a maximum of 5 years to people working at Russian companies or research institutions related to our 8-point cooperation plan. We will also make it easy for Russian university students to get visas so that they can come to Japan in greater and greater numbers. Ladies and gentlemen, in Japan, a new emperor has succeeded to the imperial throne, and the name of the era has changed accordingly. A major event announcing the rise of the curtain on this new era is the Rugby World Cup, which kicks off on the 20th of this month, and the very first match of the tournament is none other than Japan versus Russia. It goes without saying that I have full faith that Japan will emerge the winner. Sorry, Vladimir. But I want the Russian athletes also to give it their all. I would be very happy if the Russian team won its matches against all its opponents except Japan. Next year, the Olympic and Paralympic Games await us, to be held in Tokyo. The time to entrust the future to Japan is now. That is the appeal I wish to make to all of you. It is now that Japan and Russia will together create the future. Against the backdrop of Japanese and Russians sharing the joy of work, and young people in our two countries sporting carefree smiles, let us each foster in the other, for the first time in history, the power to envision dreams together and the habits of doing so. Vladimir, you and I envisage the same future. So let us go forward, Vladimir, for the sake of Russia's young people, for the sake of the people in Japan taking on responsibility for the future. Next year marks 75 years since the end of the war. It also marks 30 years since the end of the Cold War. We made a firm promise in 1956 to build relations on the principles of peace, friendship, and good neighborly relations, never again going to war with each other or regarding each other as enemies. And now we are accelerating our steps forward with a view to making our mutual development in trade and economy, foreign policy, culture, and sports, and every other area head in the same direction. Joint economic activities on the four northern islands and people-to-people exchanges have also advanced to levels never seen before. The new cooperative relationship between Japan and Russia is steadily coming to show that state of affairs thanks to the efforts the two of us have made. And beyond that lies the historic mission of concluding a peace treaty. We can no longer make the people who will live in the future wait. Let the two of us, Vladimir, join our forces to run, dash, and then dash until we reach the goal, shall we not? Let us each bear responsibility towards history. Let us conclude a peace treaty and unleash in our fell swoop the unlimited potential that the people of our two countries hold. Virtually the next instant, the connection between Japan and Russia will change the region. It will begin to change the world significantly. Ladies and gentlemen, and indeed all the Russian people, I ask that you allow new and tremendous potential in which Japan joins your future to flap its wings, the wings of imagination. Let us together forge history. Let us together carve out the future, shall we not? Thank you very much. Спасибо.
Strictly speaking, 1 year ago, the suggestion was made to conclude a peace treaty before the 31st of December of last year. I'm just a moderator, but let me add something to your very bright speech. One detail. What a great kimono the craftsmen of Japan are making for the Russian team. It is great when, against this backdrop of growing relations between Japan and Russia, we see some nonsense. And I want to give you one example. I hope you understand what I mean. It's about one person who is here in this hall. Maybe they are not going to issue a visa for me. I have recently made a trip to Europe, and I met someone there. It's Mr. Verkhovsky, a big industrialist. He works in the south of the Kuril Islands. He has business relations with Japan, and he cannot get a visa to travel to Japan. And you know why? He wants to get a visa to go to Japan, and the consulate says you don't need a visa because you are from the Northern Territories. And he says, no, I'm the Russian citizen. I live in Iturup and I need a visa. And they say, we cannot. He applied twice, and 2 times the consulate of Japan wrote letters to the foreign ministry in Japan, and it still goes on and on. Maybe we should really introduce more simple rules, because these things look like nonsense, but they become an obstacle to great relations that you have just described. What you just said, well, this is an obstacle that we have to overcome. And for that, we have to solve a problem, and we have to conclude a peace treaty. That is what we keep talking about. In this context, together with President Putin, we talk about joint declaration of 1956. In line with that joint declaration of 1956, we have to address this problem. We have to accelerate the process of signing a peace treaty. This is our common understanding. As of this visa problem, well, I have mentioned this. There are businesses done together on the 4 islands. There are some model projects, and they have already been launched. They are being carried out. As we implement those projects, we have to overcome problems that we are faced with. And for that, between Japan and Russia, we need to have very specific negotiations. We look into the future, and we address the problems as they emerge. As of the visa issues between our countries in general, each side is going to take steps. One way or another, we are talking about a more liberal visa regime as of the rate of change. I hope that in the future, the changes will be happening more quickly. Will you issue a visa? According to the Japanese law, he does not need a visa, and he wants to get a visa as a Russian citizen. I cannot speak for one specific individual. To solve such problems between Tokyo and Moscow, we have active negotiations going on. While Prime Minister of Malaysia is here waiting to take the floor. But I want to continue along the same lines. Something I saw at Iturup. There are a lot of Japanese graves, and it's very appropriate that we have solved this problem, and Japanese ancestors of the people who are buried there can travel to the islands without having to get a visa to tend to those graves. When I was walking around there, I made a few calculations. It's been 75 years, as Mr. Abbot just said. But over these 75 years, Russian people lived there, and now there are there's a comparable number of Russian graves. I have not done the exact count, but the number is comparable. I was lucky. I had an opportunity to ask you this question about the Russian flag, whether we're going to lower it or not. I don't want to repeat myself. I want to put an asymmetric question to you. I'm trying to think about this. Theoretically, if the islands were to be handed over, would we have to have a special regime for Russian citizens to travel to the islands without having to get a visa to attend to the graves of their parents? There are so many layers in this problem. I have talked to school children from Ridava settlement at Iturup, and I can see it now. Do we really need to touch it? Maybe we can come up with some unusual and traditional option that will be quite unprecedented in history. When I was in Japan several years ago, I told the story of those territories. At some point in time, Russia legitimately considered those territories to be its own, and then they were handed over to Japan as a token of friendship. This was the decision of the Russian emperor. Then, in 1905, we all know about the Russian-Japanese War. There was a situation in Sakhalin. Then we had World War II. This is complex history with a lot of components and ingredients. There is a humanitarian factor that plays a role. I cannot agree with Shinzo, who says that until those problems are solved, we have to make sure that people who have something to do with these territories should not feel victimized by the political events of previous years. Well, we understand humanitarian needs, and we do what Prime Minister is asking us, but we do that in an exclusive way, and not everybody understands what is so special about this. We do not just give an opportunity to visit those islands to the Japanese citizens, and they don't have to obtain a visa. There is a political component to that. Japan doesn't want to issue visas to its citizens to travel to those islands. We understand the situation, and we just try to do our part of the way. We're surprised that Japan is not issuing visas to all citizens, but, for example, there's an exception for the residents of Crimea. We understand the kind words. We understand the statement that one has to believe in Japan, and we do believe in Japan, and we have faith this is good. But there are a lot of questions, a lot of issues associated with signing of a peace treaty. It's not just a matter of bilateral relations. Unfortunately, sadly for us, there are issues associated with defense, issues of security. We have to understand the attitude and the position of third countries and Japan's commitments to third countries, including the United States. There are kind words, and there are other considerations. Let me remind to you, good word is good. However, kind words and Smith & Wesson works better than just a kind word. We have to remember that and take that into account. This phrase goes back to 1920s or 1930s. At first sight, it looks quite simple, but it's not. This is something we inherited from the past. But indeed, myself and Shinzo want to solve this problem. We can look at the Declaration of 1956 as the basis for full-scale settlement of our relations. We are going to work towards a peace treaty. If I may, I would like to add something. What President Putin just said. After President Putin said those words, we met again in Singapore, and we decided that we would use the Declaration of 1956 as a basis for further work. But former residents of the island can visit the graves of their ancestors. There are flights to those islands. They can also visit some areas which they cannot or could not visit in the past. There is an atmosphere of trust between our countries, and because of it, we have seen a lot of improvements. You have raised the visa issue to address those problems at a business level. Well, we think hard how we can do that. There are various ideas and considerations. We are walking step by step. I see progress, see things that we did not have in the past. Well, you asked questions. If I were in a different position, I would think that we would have to consider humanitarian needs of people. That goes without saying. Let me introduce the new guest of the Eastern Economic Forum, Prime Minister of Malaysia, Mr. Muhammad. Most of the panelists were going to school. I went to the second grade at the time when Mr. Prime Minister became the Prime Minister for the first time. In the beginning of 80s, he is a politician with the biggest experience. Later, he became Prime Minister again. I have asked Mr. Prime Minister for the permission to say it. He is 94 years old. He's 93 years old and counting.
His Excellency Mr. Vladimir Putin, President of the Russian Federation, His Excellency Narendra Modi, Prime Minister of India, His Excellency Shinzo Abe, Prime Minister of Japan, His Excellency Mr. Batulga, President of Mongolia, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen. Firstly, I would like to thank the government of Russia and Mr. Putin in particular for this invitation to participate in the forum on the Far East. This is, of course, the first time I'm attending this forum, and I'm very interested indeed as to what you will be discussing at this forum. Now, after I've listened to what Mr. Putin has to say, I realize that Russia now wants to develop its eastern provinces. We have always had this impression that Russia is not paying enough attention to its Far East territories. But now we see that the interest is very real, and to us, this may mean the opening up of new markets for Malaysia. Malaysia is a trading nation. It is always looking for markets, and when any place is developed, then the potential for trade would be much more. However, I must admit that I and most Malaysians do not know much about Vladivostok. We know that it is in a very cold part of Russia, but practically none of us have visited this place as tourists or have shown any interest in having trade with this part of Russia. But now, obviously, there will be potential in the future as Russia begins to develop this part of Russia. But because we know very little about this part of Russia, it is important that there should be more promotion, more publicity about this part so that Malaysians will get to know about this part of Russia more, and they would want to come to Vladivostok and the regions nearby. We know that tourism is one way of developing a country. Tourism has done very well in Malaysia, where the population is 32 million, but we have 29 million tourists a year. That's not very bad, very big if you compare with places like Venice or Egypt, but it is very substantial for Malaysia, and it has contributed much to Malaysia's development. The key to increase in tourism is publicity. We need to know more about the places that we want to visit. There are so many places in the world that are worth visiting, but if there is a new place, there should be more interest to see new things in new places. And I think Vladivostok might offer the kind of environment and situation that will attract tourists from Malaysia and other tropical countries. Malaysia is in the center of Southeast Asia. And from Malaysia, you can communicate throughout the Southeast Asian region, in particular the ASEAN grouping. But in order to be interested in coming here, I believe that one of the most important attraction would be sporting events. Just now, Mr. Abe mentioned about this rugby match between Russia and Japan. Now, if it is to be played in this part, in Vladivostok, then I'm quite sure this will attract many Southeast Asians to come here, because we too are very keen on this game. Besides, it will be like watching two giants playing. We only know small countries in Southeast Asia, and physically we are not very big. We are very small people. And so the rugby match would certainly be of interest to us in Malaysia and to other countries as well. Malaysia became attractive to tourists because of sports. We decided to host the F1 race and also the bicycle tour, the Langkawi, which is related to the Tour de France. And since we had these two events, we have been attracting a lot of tourists. But more important than that is the interest shown by Malaysians in both automotive engineering and the like, as well as in cycling. Today, you see in Malaysia lots of cyclists almost every day, although Malaysia's humid climate is not very conducive towards physical exertion. But it has developed into a very good attraction. The F1, for example, has attracted many tourists from all over the world. And the best thing about both the F1 as well as the Tour de Langkawi is that they are covered by 300 TV stations all over the world. Now, if you ask this TV station to advertise the events, they would charge you a fortune. A 3-minute show would cost us about 1 million Malaysian ringgit. But for those two races, they would show on the TV screen for 3 days in the case of the F1 race and 10 days for the cycle race. And they show the pictures of all parts of Malaysia, which in fact helps us to advertise our country, to attract tourists and to attract investors without our having to pay for the advertising. Although we do have to pay for bringing these 2 events to Malaysia. So I would say that this area of Russia would be very attractive to Malaysia if there are such events. Malaysians travel a lot, and the numbers which go to out of the country every year is very substantial, and they are looking for new places to go to. And I'm quite sure that with the development taking place here, more Malaysians will be coming here. But apart from that, of course, it's not just the Malaysians, but other tourists also will be coming here. Now, development is something that is well understood in Malaysia. When we became independent, we were a very poor country with no industries and only attractive businesses like producing rubber, palm oil, and tin. But we wanted to become developed. So we set about attracting investments in particular. That is because Malaysia had no technology, no capital, no management know-how for big companies, and also no knowledge about the world market. So by attracting foreign direct investment, we suddenly became very much an industrialized country. Today, Malaysia can be considered as industrialized, but in addition to that, of course, the population has become, earn more income, bigger income, and the country itself has developed through the efforts of the investors and the private sector. I'm quite sure that even Malaysian investors might be coming here if the situation is attractive enough. I just came from Cambodia. I was in Phnom Penh, and in Phnom Penh alone, there are 3,000 Malaysian businessmen working and living there, and they have contributed much towards the development of Cambodia. I'm quite sure, to a small extent at least, if Malaysian investors come here, there would be some contribution towards the growth and development of Vladivostok. Malaysians do have chains of hotels, and Malaysian hoteliers have been very active all over the world. One recent event is when a Malaysian hotelier bought 20 hotels in Iceland. Maybe people would not think Iceland is a very attractive destination for tourists, but a lot of people go to Iceland to see the northern lights and to see this very green but snowy country. There is something peculiar about the name of Iceland and its neighbor Greenland. Whereas Greenland is white with a lot of snow, Iceland is green with less snow. So it is a very interesting place, and for that reason, a Malaysian hotelier was willing to invest in that area. I'm quite sure that, in fact, they have also gone to Kyoto. I'm going to Kyoto after this, where they built a new hotel in Kyoto. Hotels are absolutely necessary if you want to attract more tourists. And of course, the hotels have various classes. It's not always the 5-star hotels which are popular, but the 3-star hotels are also popular. And this is our experience in Malaysia. So we are very glad indeed to hear that Russia is going to develop this part of Russia. Russia, of course, is one of the few countries that is both in Europe and in Asia. The other country is Turkey. But Russia is a sort of bridge. Physically, geographically, Russia is a bridge between East and West, between Europe and Asia. And I think this would help Russia to play a role not only in Europe, but also in the Far East. With Russian participation in the development of the Far East, I think Far Eastern people, Asians generally, would benefit from the activities, from the development of this part of Russia. So I've come here in order to learn more about this part of Russia and what you intend to do with the development of Vladivostok. All I know about Vladivostok is that it is a cold place. And when I landed yesterday, I was shocked to find that it is not cold at all. The temperature was almost like in Malaysia, 24 or 25 degrees. So it is not true that what we believe in Malaysia, that it is always covered by snow. I am quite sure that when it is snowing, it would look as beautiful as any other place. But to know that Russia can be warm and friendly is something that would be a great attraction for Malaysians and Southeast Asian people to come to this area. I would like to say that the relationship between Malaysia and Russia has always been good. I have met Mr. Putin a long time ago. We have met many, many times in different forums, and we have never failed to have bilateral talks whenever we found the time and the occasion. And I think it is through these bilateral talks that we develop our relation. When Russia first exhibited their warplanes in the Langkawi International Airtime and Maritime and Air Show, immediately there was interest, more interest in the Russian planes, and there were sales made there. So Malaysia is really a good place to market your products. It will not only be for Malaysia, but it will also attract a lot of other countries in Southeast Asia. Certainly in the field of this equipment, the numbers of sales, I believe, of Russian products have increased. And we are looking forward towards greater cooperation with Russia in the field of education. There is a proposal to set up a university focused on the aerospace engineering, which should be a great contribution towards upgrading Malaysian education. Malaysia is already an education hub. We attract more than 100,000 foreign students to Malaysia, and I believe there are a few students also from Russia studying in Malaysia. We have students from Africa, from Central Asia, and from many other places. And if Russia is going to promote its education and its in particular is engineering and aerospace knowledge, Malaysia is the place to put your university in. So I have had a long discussion with President Putin this morning, and I believe that we covered a lot of areas where we can work together, and I can see only benefit accruing from our closer relationship. So I would like to thank you once again for this opportunity to participate in this forum, and I hope that as a result, there will be greater cooperation and friendship between Malaysia and Russia for our mutual benefit. I thank you.
If I may, I'd like to react just a couple of words as a reaction on the presentation by Mr. Prime Minister. Under the careful management of Prime Minister, Malaysia has become a well-developed economy just in a couple of years, a very promising developing country. And just about 12 years ago, time flies, Mr. Prime Minister was leaving his position and was believing that he's about to complete his political career. We've met in Malaysia at the Prime Minister's home, and his dear spouse invited me. It was a very warm welcome, a very warm, friendly meeting. And I visited the home of my dear colleague back then, despite the fact that we both believed back then was over. However, a lot has changed since then. But there is one thing that hasn't changed, and namely that is the attitude of Mr. Prime Minister towards Russia. Mr. Prime Minister was one of the initiators of the fact that Russia became an observer in the Organization of Islamic States. And I believe, as one of the most experienced political leaders in the world, and one of the leaders of Islamic world, that kind of impact certainly goes beyond the borders of Malaysia, and it is indeed for me a great pleasure and joy to see that Mr. Prime Minister has honoured us with his visit and keeps this warm welcome. I believe it all deserves a very warm welcome. Thank you.
Prime Minister, by the way, what do you think is the limit for being a politician? What is like the limit of age for being a politician?
Well, at the moment, we have raised the age to 95.
Vladimir Vladimirovich.
So, Mr. Putin, well, I'm not up to that yet. I would like to, after we've listened to the statements by the participants of this session, to underscore that the list of the participants of the Eastern Economic Forum keeps growing. It was my great pleasure to hear Spanish language. We've met with Mr. Ortega, Special Representative of Nicaragua for ties with Russia. But Mr. Ortega asked to send best regards from his father, Presidente and Comandante Daniel Ortega, but I can't but pay attention to the fact that there are Ukrainian investors now in this hall. For example, Mr. Medvedchuk is present here. He's an investor. So when is the exchange going to take place, Mr. Putin? The exchange, when is it going to take place? Well, I think that Mr. Medvedchuk is going to torture me about this. I know that he's especially nervous about several people to be exchanged who are now imprisoned in the Russian Federation, and it's quite hard for us. It was quite hard for us to take decision about this specific people. But based on humanity, we are now about to complete the talks that we have, including with the official authorities. So I believe that it will be known in the near future. the prospects of some exchanges with Ukraine or further talks are also a sort of a compass, if I may, in relationship with the countries of G7, for example. What will happen next after the exchange? What is possible after the exchange on the Ukrainian track between Russia and Ukraine? I believe that historically it will happen inevitable. We will normalize our relationship at the end of the day because we're two parts of the same people. And I've said that numerously before. As far as the nearest prospect is concerned, this will largely depend on the current Ukrainian leadership. So are we to expect something until the end of the week, before the end of the week? Well, I've just said that we will finalize our talks on the exchange. It will be rather a large-scale exchange, and it would also already be a good step towards normalization. Mr. Abbot, I would like to ask you a question. When I mentioned the G7, for example, you've heard the reports that President Trump was present at the latest G7 summit and that he spoke in favor of the Russian Federation and President Putin. You observed it from inside. So without breaking some obvious rules, since this is a closed club, maybe you can tell us how it was, how it happened.
G7 の会合においてはですね、かつては G8 だったわけでありますが、やはりロシアのですね、様々な
As far as the G7 is concerned, we used to have G8 before. Within G8, we discussed that the creative influence on international community is of great importance. But as President Putin knows quite well, since he took part in G8 summits, there are some rules there. I can only quote myself. I cannot quote other leaders. So I cannot say what exactly was said by President Trump, for example. I personally said that to resolve global issues, an important role should be played by Russia's influence, Russian creative influence. Therefore, I raised this issue of the possible return of Russia to this format. So if you're invited, will you go there, Mr. President? Where? G8. I think the next G8 summit is take place in the United States. However, it will be the heat of the presidential campaign. G8 was to actually take place in Russia, in Sochi, yes. When we are open to our partners, we'll be happy and glad to welcome them in Russia if they wish to come. We were not the one to postpone this summit. Our partners postponed it. So if you want to restore G8, please come and do it. But I think that everyone understands today, and President Macron has said recently in public that the Western leadership is over. I cannot imagine an efficient international organization that works without India and without China. Any formats are always beneficial. This is always a positive exchange of views, even when there are some debates and disputes. I believe that was the case in G7 this time. But it's still useful, therefore we do not abandon any format of cooperation. So, Mr. Modi, if such invitation is heard to extend G7 to include Russia, India and China up to G10, will you go to such G10 summit?
It is true that, in principle, we support a multipolar world, and countries that are like-minded is likely represented. And I understand, these people get together in different forums and they talk about various global issues. And so each of the forums has its own importance. This time, I had the opportunity to be part of the G7 summit as an observer, and whatever role we need to play as an observer is what we did. However, this question, if this question was placed in front of me from the G7 forum, that would you like to be part of this, then I think it would be appropriate to answer, because here my yes or no as an answer to your question, I don't think really it has any meaning.
President of Turkey, Erdogan, has spoken to me quite recently, and he said that, why didn't you raise the issue of Turkey being a part of this format? So after Turkey has purchased S-400, it is protected from the skies, from above. The work of Turkey in this format would also be quite relevant. I'm talking about its role in international affairs and in the region. Well, actually, as far as I understand from the latest two remarks made by Prime Minister of India and President of Russia, G20 is the format which actually resolves all the tasks that we have in front of us. Yes, as of today, this is maybe the most representative international organization that deals with harmonization of positions on economy. Don't be surprised by my next question, but I hope it will be quite a curious bridge. My question is to President of Mongolia. There is one suspicious coincidence. A call by President Trump to President Putin took place on the day you were in Washington. Did you do something about it? Did you actually make President Trump make this call? Could you tell us about it? Big countries have certain misunderstanding between them. And during my visit to the United States, I said that we live on the same planet. Siberia is a part of this planet, is a part of this global world. The Siberian forests are burning down. I've told him, why don't you call the president to express your condolences over this? We live on the same planet. Siberia is the lungs of our country. So these lungs are burning. Why don't you call the Russian president and express your condolences? It's just suspicious, you know. Remember where I used to work. Everybody knows where I used to work, so I'm aware of everything that's going on. Mr. Putin, well, you've talked to President Trump recently. The idea of G8 has been mentioned. So what are we to begin with? There is a lot of issues that have accumulated over the recent years. I've had a look at statistics. By the last year, 40 citizens of the Russian Federation were arrested upon request of the United States in the third countries. So January 2019, the citizen Makarenko, I don't know what he's accused of, but the very fact of it, I'm going to mention it. Mr. Korshunov was arrested in Naples. So is it easy to step over this, to turn this page over? How easy it is to restore dialogue against this backdrop? This practice is really bad, which makes our state-to-state relationship much more complicated, and I'm not making any jokes about it. We often see no foundation for the unfriendly acts of such nature. I have every reason to believe that this has to do sometimes with competitive fight. There are some criminal elements to it, maybe, but maybe our law enforcement agencies should have cooperated better on that. They should have signed an intergovernmental agreement, a document on how to act in situations like this. Such documents actually exist. The one of 1999, we had an agreement in 1999. They could be updated because they, in fact, are not operational. But in some extent, this has to do with competition in aviation building. We have this good mid-range aircraft, MS-21, developing it. It's a competitor to Boeing 737. But it was put under sanctions. A part of this aircraft, which is used for producing the wing, was placed under the sanctions list. It has nothing to do with defense, nothing. But we'll do it on our own. But cooperation would be actually important. And we were ready to purchase such U.S. materials, just the same as the U.S. is purchasing titanium from us in large quantities and producing Boeings from our titanium. But we'll do it anyway. It will take us some time, maybe a year or two, maybe a year and a half. It's already flying. This aircraft is already flying, and we will have these materials. And maybe it's a good thing that we will have our own materials. We will not have to depend on anyone. Now, as for the person you've mentioned that is involved in engine construction, working for the Engine Construction Corporation, some accusations have been made of him stealing some secrets. We've heard such accusations against the People's Republic of China, for example. I don't know what's actually going on there. But here we know for sure that this corporation, the United Engine Building Corporation, produced a new Russian engine. It took it a lot of time to produce this engine. This is our first high-tech product of such nature for the last 28 years. And our Engine Building Corporation was producing it. This is a specific enterprise with very good competences, with good staff, with the R&D base of world class. We signed a contract with an Italian company for consultation. That's absolutely natural world practice. This is an open commercial work with our European partners. Now, the US friends are trying to assure us of the fact that some Americans were employed by this company, that they stole something. Well, if they stole something, then this should be somehow dealt with. But we do not anything that they stole. Everything that we make is made by our specialists. Well, consultation, some joint efforts on state-of-the-art high-tech products this is something natural, some public work that is going on. So in this particular case, I believe that what we see are the attempts of malafide competition, and this does not improve our relationship in any way. So those of us who want something good in the relationship between Russia and the West, after all these years, are looking in depth at the details. And I promise that in just one step we'll go back to economic issues, which is the main topic of this forum. One more military and political question. I would like to take advantage of the presence of Mr. Abbot here. On August 27th, many world agencies, including France Press, reported about the forthcoming supplies of US missiles for air defense to Japan. So against the backdrop of the expiration of the Intermediate Range Nuclear Forces Treaty and about everyone knows about the peculiar characteristics of launchers in Romania and in Poland. I'm sorry about these long details, but against the backdrop of the treaty that was signed by Gorbachev and Reagan with regard to Europe, the Soviet Union destroyed all such missiles in Asia. This may transform the missile configuration in Asia. So 2 questions, Mr. Putin. Or if someone else wishes to comment, we'll appreciate it, of course. So 2 questions. First, what is your vision of the possible mechanism for control or limitation, whatever, of missile issues in Asia? Will it actually be required, especially given the emergence of US missiles there? And the second thing, I promised I would go back to that. How are you to negotiate with Japan against this backdrop? You mentioned this military U.S. aspect, so that's it. That's the example of it. Our position with regard to U.S. withdrawal from the Intermediate-Range Nuclear Forces Treaty is well known. There is no need to repeat it. It's not just that we do not welcome this step. We believe it to be counterproductive and destroy the international arms control system. We've said in public already that we're not going to employ, after the U.S. has tested such a missile, we are not going to employ this missile. We will produce such missiles, of course, in those regions where U.S. missile systems will not emerge, such land-based systems. The fact that the head of Pentagon has said that the U.S. is going to employ those systems in Japan and in South Korea does not make us any happy. This actually makes us quite sad. And it is also a reason for certain concerns for us. This was, by the way, the subject of our talks with Prime Minister on numerous occasions, even before the Americans produced such missiles.
If they are deployed in Japan or South Korea, we understand that this is going to be done under the pretext of preventing the threat from North Korea. But even for us, it is going to pose a significant problem, a very serious one, because these missile systems are going to be able to cover a large part of the Russian territory, in particular in the Russian Far East. And I'd like to remind you that two big military bases of ours are located here, as well as a base of nuclear-powered strategic aircraft carriers and ports, and Kamchatka in particular. And this is a serious matter. And in this particular context, of course, this is something we cannot overlook. And this is one of the factors that is going to be taken into account in our talks, both with Japan and South Korea. So far, we do not know the response of our South Korean and Japanese partners to that initiative. Prime Minister and I have not spoken about that today. Incidentally, on many occasions, we drew attention to the fact that launches MS-21 can not just be used for anti-missiles, interceptor missiles, but also they can be used for offensive missiles, even though the Americans are trying to say that this is not the case. But they have tested these launches with offensive missile systems. So this launcher can be part of offensive weaponry. So we were right. So I assume they were trying to lead us astray. But we have no illusions about that, we understand. And we are going to respond appropriately. First and foremost, I would like to say that in Poland or in South Korea, there are ABM systems deployed, but they do belong to the U.S. and they are managed by the U.S. Japan, on the country, has an ABM system on its own, and it is managed by Japan and is not under the control of the U.S. So, yes, this initiative also stipulates that such systems are going to be under control of Japan. So this is absolutely different from the missiles that are deployed, for instance, in Poland. Now, as far as Japan's defensive system is concerned, North Korea has several hundreds ballistic missiles at its disposal. So in order to protect ourselves, we decided to implement an ABM system of our own. The launch of a ballistic missile goes contrary to UN Security Council resolutions and, of course, is distressing. But to protect our country from such conduct, we have to deploy
a Navy system of our own. Now, as for the deployment of American systems in Japan, we have not received any proposal to that effect from the U.S. What we have in Japan right now belongs to Japan. It's Japanese property, and it is meant for the protection of our country. So even technically, for instance, to launch a Tomahawk missile from such systems we have is impossible. Well, the head of the Pentagon has announced that the U.S. is engaged in talks with Japan as well as with South Korea, and that it intends to continue these talks with a view to deploying their land-based intermediate-range missile systems. But let me reiterate, Shinzo and I didn't have talks to that effect. So this issue is going to be discussed at the foreign ministries level in future. Thank you. Let me get back to the issue of security. We cannot overlook it. But now let's get back for a while to economic matters. There was a wonderful session at the Valdai International Club, and there was a World Bank representative speaking during that session, and I liked a lot how he formulated his thought, just as between India and Russia, as well as between China and Russia. There is the so-called undertrade, that's what he called it. The current capacities would allow these countries trading to trade more. And there is, I think, a goal of reaching 30 billion in trade between India and Russia. So, Prime Minister Modi, what do you think can be done to achieve a steady development of economic and trade relations between Russia and India?
आपने बहुत ही सही सवाल पूछा है और वर्ल्ड बैंक का जो ये ऑब्जर्वेशन है उसमें काफ़ी सच्चाई है, बहुत संभावनाएं हैं और अभी तक हम पूर्ण सामर्थ्य के साथ अनेक विविधताओं के साथ जितना करना चाहिए उसमें हमारी गति भी कम है और हमारा व्याप भी कम है और ये बात भारत रशिया दोनों मानते हैं। ऐसा नहीं है कि हम दोनों इस बात को नहीं मानते। आपको मालूम होगा कि एक समय ऐसा था कि जिसमें रशिया और भारत का संबंध ज़्यादातर बायर और सेलर का था और वो भी शस्त्रास्त्रों की खरीदी करने वाला भारत एक खरीदार था। आज ऐसी स्थिति नहीं है। चाहे डायमंड हो, चाहे ऑयल हो, चाहे एनर्जी सेक्टर हो, रशिया का भारत में भी इन्वेस्टमेंट हो रहा है, भारत का भी रशिया में इन्वेस्टमेंट हो रहा है, टूरिज्म हमारा बढ़ रहा है, हमारे पॉलिटिकल एंगेजमेंट भी बहुत बड़े हैं और रशिया भारत का बहुत पुराना विश्वस्त मित्र रहा है और अब बायर सेलर की भूमिका से निकल कर के हम दोनों देश मिलकर के हर क्षेत्र में आर्थिक संबंधों को बनाने की दिशा में आगे बढ़ रहे हैं। इसमें भी सिर्फ मैं आकर के यहाँ लेक्चर दे करके नहीं जा रहा हूँ। मेरे आने से पहले मेरे देश के 4 बड़े राज्य के मुख्यमंत्री आए, 150 से ज़्यादा व्यापार और उद्योग जगत के लोग आए। इसके पहले मैं जब सेंट पीटर्सबर्ग आया था तो यहाँ के सारे गवर्नर्स वहाँ आए थे, मैंने उनके साथ संवाद किया था। तो एक प्रकार से हमने जहाँ जहाँ पोटेंशियल है उसको आइडेंटिफाई कर रहे हैं। वैल्यू एडिशन के लिए हम एक दूसरे को कैसे पूरक हो सकते हैं इस पर योजना कर रहे हैं और मुझे पक्का भरोसा है कि हमने कहीं पर भी संतोष नहीं मानना चाहिए। अगर मान लीजिए वर्ल्ड बैंक का रिपोर्ट ये भी कह दे कि बहुत अच्छा हमारा ट्रेड है तो भी मैं संतुष्ट होना नहीं चाहूँगा, मैं उससे भी आगे बढ़ना चाहूँगा और राष्ट्रपति पुतिन मेरे मित्र का और मेरी मित्रता के बीच में ये एक चीज़ कॉमन है कि हम दोनों कहीं संतोष नहीं मानते हैं, कहीं रुकते नहीं हैं। अगर कुछ हुआ है तो और ज़्यादा अच्छा करें, और ज़्यादा व्यापक करें, और लंबे समय के लिए। इस मूलभूत चिंतन से जुड़े हुए होने के कारण और वर्ल्ड बैंक के इस रिपोर्ट को नज़रिए में रखते हुए हम और अधिक आगे बढ़ना चाहते हैं।
Еще в таком случае вопрос по поводу того, куда стремиться больше.
Another question about what else can be done. Well, of course, I read before this meeting, and I understand that you've got a topic you like very much, that is youth. And right now, India has this superpower image in ITCs and software, and youth and computer technologies are inextricably linked in many minds. So within this economic exchanges, what can be done? What about youth and economic? How do they intertwine together? How are they supposed to work together?
Analysis is
भारत दुनिया का आज सबसे युवा देश है। इंफॉर्मेशन कम्युनिकेशन टेक्नोलॉजी में भारत ने अपने एक महारत हासिल की है, लेकिन हम कैसे आगे बढ़ते हैं? मैं पिछले वर्ष एक इनफॉर्मल समिट के लिए मैं और राष्ट्रपति पुतिन सोची में 2 दिन रहे थे। कोई एजेंडा नहीं था, ऐसे ही हम लोग मिले थे और बाद में मुझे वो एक एजुकेशनल इंस्टीट्यूट देखने के लिए ले गए थे और मैं बहुत प्रभावित हुआ था। और बाद में वे जब भारत आए तो मैंने उनसे बड़ा आग्रह किया था कि आप सोची से जो आपके होनहार स्टूडेंट्स हैं उनको ले आइए। हमने भारत के भी अलग अलग यूनिवर्सिटी से वैसे ही स्टूडेंट एकत्र किए और उनका एक हैकेथॉन किया टेक्नोलॉजी को लेकर के, यानी एक प्रकार से मीटिंग ऑफ माइंड, इनोवेशंस एंड समथिंग टू दुनिया को डिलीवर करना। वो बहुत ही अच्छा प्रयोग रहा। अब भारत से बच्चे सोची में आएंगे तो ये स्टूडेंट एक्सचेंज फॉर इनोवेशन एंड टेक्नोलॉजी स्टार्टअप एक बहुत बड़ी ताकत आज भारत की उभर कर रही है। हम दुनिया में पहले 3 में हमने अपनी जगह बनाई है। भारत के यूथ उसमें इनिशिएटिव ले रहा है। हम उसमें दुनिया के इस प्रकार का जो इनोवेटिव माइंड के यूथ है उनको हम जोड़ना चाहते हैं, तो उसके द्वारा भी कर सकता है। सामान्य जन के लिए अब टेक्नोलॉजी अनिवार्य हो गई है। हम टेक्नोलॉजी को जीवन का एक एक्सटेंडेड हिस्सा मान करके ही चलना होगा। तो एक कॉमन गुड्स के लिए हम टेक्नोलॉजी का ज़्यादा इस्तेमाल कैसे कर सकें और उसमें रशियन ब्रेन एंड इंडियन ब्रेन मिल करके उस काम को कर सकते हैं। मैं समझता हूँ हमारी युवा शक्ति इस विषय को लेकर के काफ़ी कुछ कंट्रीब्यूट कर सकती है।
Владимир Владимирович, премьер-министр сейчас имел в виду, естественно, закончился перевод, да? Владимир Владимирович, премьер-министр сейчас...
Yes, of course, Prime Minister has just been speaking about Syria School in Sochi. And indeed, there are wonderful young people there. And there are also those from the Agency for Strategic Initiatives, but other young people who take to the streets. What about these young people? Are these young people your people? Those people who have taken to the street. Yes, it's very strange here. The sound goes into the audience, but it doesn't go here on the podium. So there are young people from Syria, young people from the Agency for Strategic Initiatives, and there are people, young people who have taken into the streets recently. Are they your young people? Well, listen. Sinjay has said that people are faster in Japan, and it's good. And in Russia, for instance, in Chechnya or in Dagestan, they are still going as slowly as they used to, but the birth rates are higher in Japan, so it's the matter of what you spend your nerves on, as it were. I assume that all of us, primarily young people, have to spend their energy on creative processes. When people express their points of view during acts of protest, I believe, and I said that before, have the right to do so. Sometimes this can bring about positive results because it is sort of a shake-off for the power. It helps the authorities reconfigure in a way that makes it efficient, more efficient in addressing the issues people are faced with. But these actions have to take place in a positive vein. They do not have to pursue their self-serving, narrow interests. No, they have to be guided by the common interest, by the interest of the people, and they also have to act within the framework laid down by the law. And this is a point of view I've always adhered to. I still do. And the practice of such actions in Russia and elsewhere says that I'm right. It's a testimony to that. Now, as for, well, those young people you asked me about, I believe most of them think positively. They want our country to develop. They want to make a contribution of their own to the development of our country. The only question is for them to find their own place in life, whereas it's up to the authorities to do everything in their power for young people to be able to find themselves and to make the maximum contribution they can to a creative development of their country. Young people are very energetic, very dynamic, very active, but I reiterate, it has to be done within the framework of the law. And I'm confident that many people who are in the politics are going to be in great demand in future as well. Mr. President, I remember the experience of my generation. I'm 47. Guys and I, in the 1990s, early 90s, we went to different rallies. As I remember one rally against Article 6 of the Constitution. There were students and I, and we went against that article saying that the Communist Party was the core of the political system. But when we approached Zubovsky Boulevard, we were very close to the rally, and I think there was several hundreds people, and we went to the Politburo to retire. And, well, it turned out when we went to the rally that it was very easy to lead young people astray. The attitude towards everyone has to be equal and the same as part of the law. Yes, thank you. Now, we spoke about some security issues, and I'd like to ask something about politics. I saw the audience, and I saw Mr. Medvedchuk, and I remembered the announcement of President Zelensky, who said that the Party of Life was getting foreign funding. Did you see this announcement? What's your attitude to that? No, I didn't see that announcement, but if it did take place, then it says that the current authorities in Kiev run the risk of encountering the same problem, of making the same mistake that was made by the previous government in the person of previous President Mr. Poroshenko. If the current authorities begin their political path from and by persecutions against the opposition, nothing good is going to come out of this. As far as I understand, there is opposition in the parliament, which wields a great deal of support and trust of the voters, which was confirmed during the elections. So it would be very strange if the authorities decided to introduce tighter rules. The opposition is not taking to the streets. They are not trying to violate the legislation or the constitution. And I think it would be a mistake if attempts were made to prevent them from exercising their rights under the constitution. Very briefly, we touched upon an issue that is very important to everyone present here. That's the issue of Iran and sanctions, and the third phase of the withdrawal from the JCPOA. Prime Minister Abe, recently you've been to Iran. Incidentally, it was very interesting to see this picture, this image of the Japanese side and the Iranian side on the other side. It was not a coincidence that you went there. So what do you think about this future of the JCPOA? What are your relations with the countries involved in this discussion and this conflict, which is also related to the freedom of navigation? So what's the way out?
日本はまずこの核合意については支持をする立場であります。
As for Japan, then we have long talked to the US that we have our very own opinion. And concerning Iran and the nuclear deal issue, I wish that it would be resolved through negotiations. Japan has historically friendly relationships with Iran, and I've always considered that we need to use, in the best possible way, those friendly ties. That is why I visited Iran and I talked to the president, and Mr. Khomeini, and he said very clearly that Iran is not going to produce or use nuclear weapons. He said that very clearly. The supreme leader said it. As for the president of Iran, he said the following: we will strive to establish a dialogue and resolve all the problems through dialogue. And Japan provides support. As for our resources, we really use a lot of resources from the Middle East, and the energy resources coming from there are very important for our country. So security of tankers coming from there is very important for us. We need to ensure security there, and France is doing a lot, and Japan is doing a lot to ensure security. We will use our friendly ties, our historically friendly ties, in future, and we have talked about it with President Putin as well.
Если иногда теряется перевод здесь через два языка, насколько мне известно, я повторю на всякий случай свой вопрос, чтобы переводчики успели. Будет ли Индия, собирается ли
India, is India going to send its naval forces to the Strait of Hormuz from the Gulf to the Indian Ocean, where the Persian oil is going through?
भारत का इतिहास दुनिया के सामने है। यूएन का जो पीस कीपिंग फोर्स है, उसमें सबसे अधिक योगदान करने में भारत की बहुत बड़ी भूमिका रही है। तो भारत के सैनिक हमेशा पीस कीपिंग फोर्स के अंतर्गत ही काम करने के आदी रहे हैं। आज तक हमने कभी भी आज़ाद भारत ने ऐसी कोई प्रवृत्ति नहीं की है। ये सही है कि प्रथम और दूसरे विश्व युद्ध में, जो कि न ही हमारा एजेंडा था, न ही हमारा मिशन था, लेकिन दो विश्व युद्ध में भारत ने करीब 1.5 लाख लोग हमारे शहीद हुए हैं। हमारा हज़ारों साल का इतिहास है। भारत कभी भी इस प्रकार की प्रवृत्तियों से जुड़ा हुआ नहीं है। लेकिन जहाँ तक हमारे एनर्जी सिक्योरिटी का सवाल है, हम अधिकतम ईरान पर डिपेंडेंट रहे हैं हमारी एनर्जी सिक्योरिटी के लिए, लेकिन पिछले दिनों वहाँ की जो समस्या हुई उसका साइड इफ़ेक्ट हम पर न हो, इसलिए हमने हमारी एनर्जी सिक्योरिटी को कोई तकलीफ न हो, हमारे जहाज़ों को कोई तकलीफ न हो, उनकी सुरक्षा की व्यवस्था हमने करके रखी हुई है। और वो सिर्फ भारत के हमारे जो ऑयल टैंकर हैं उसकी सुरक्षा की व्यवस्था है। हमने किसी को टारगेट करना या किसी की व्यवस्था में दखल देना न ये हमारा लक्ष्य है, न हमारी योजना है, और न ही दुनिया में कोई हमारे इस विषय को लेकर के कोई नेगेटिव चर्चा करता है।
So, Mr. Putin, what about Russia's military presence? Because in Soviet time it used to be the case. Considering the development of our navy and our military forces, this is not a problem for us, but it's not about that. We need to make all actions efficient and for them to bring about peaceful resolution and greater security and safety in the region and the Strait of Hormuz. Several years ago, Russia presented an initiative to create an international mechanism with the participation of all the interested countries in the region and all those wanting for those routes to function properly, involving Russia, the US, and Asian countries. In future, we could even create a special international organization to resolve any issues arising there. We are discussing that with my colleagues, including with our Chinese partners and with our partners from other countries. We'll see what it will lead to, but Russia is interested for the situation to become less tense, and all actions should lead to a calmer situation and to resolve the issues around the Iran nuclear program based on the previously adopted international documents, which were confirmed by the relevant resolutions of the Security Council of the UN. In this case, the last question regarding security, there's an interesting change in the world. Considering the UK, US, there are 3 countries in NATO, but there's also Russia, India, and Pakistan in another organization, but a lot depends on various agreements when it comes to strategic stability. In your address to the Federal Assembly 2 years ago, you talked about new types of weapons, the supersonic weapons, hypersonic weapons. Could they become a part of a greater deal with the Americans? Yes, we believe that the existing instruments, and there's only one left, the New START Treaty, and this treaty has indeed been signed between Russia and the US. And currently, the US has a new version of the treaty. They want to also involve China in this treaty. But China has been consistent in saying that Chinese nuclear potential is much lower than Russia's or the Americans. And that's why, how could they lower it if they have it low per se? This is what the situation looks like today. But you should not forget that the US did not even join the Treaty on the Comprehensive Ban of Nuclear Tests, CTBT. And now we also have the danger of placing weapons in outer space. And those are all very serious challenges that the humanity might face. And now, over our heads in space, there would be some type of weapons present, even nuclear weapons. And a very short time it would travel the distance. So it would make defense options very complex. So it might drastically change the security situation around the globe. As for now, our American partners, when we propose to continue talking about disarmament, they remain silent. There's nothing new about that. We have met with American partners last time in Osaka, and we discussed how we can possibly account for our new weapons, especially hypersonic missile systems, and no country in the world has weapons like that, even the US. So I said maybe you could sell such weapons to America, and then we could even the balance. But they say that maybe they might produce such weapons themselves, maybe, but then why would they spend the money if we have already spent the money and we can gain something from them? It would not be a breach of our security, but would help to create a balance. We can also talk what could be accounted for when we talk about various types of weapons and launch vehicles. Russia is ready to talk about that, but so far we have not received a coherent response from the US. Our session has been going for a long time, so maybe we should talk about the last major topic, and it is a common topic for us, as the president of Mongolia asked to call you regarding the forest fires. He talked to the American president. However, you might think of nature and the problem of the climate change. There are different versions, but we are not talking about that. But we see some unprecedented changes around the world. It's not about satellite connectivity and us knowing faster about, say, the forest fires in Brazil and elsewhere. We can just observe that there are great changes. I like to collect mushrooms, and until last year I collected mushrooms in October. So maybe you actually set the forests on fire. No. So I only collect mushrooms in Moscow, in the Moscow region. This is a very complex topic, so I would like to apply it to the participants of the session. Russia likes it that the Arctic Ocean gives more time for marine traffic that doesn't have ice coverage, but at the same time we know that on the shore, the fact that we see snows melting and permafrost melting, and I have witnessed that rivers are not covered in ice, and that's why there's a problem with deers, and they cannot cross the rivers, etc., etc. This is a common topic because Russian Arctic oil and gas will pass through a new route, which was named by the prime ministers of India and Japan. And the problem with the Siberian forest fires reaches Mongolia. So we have a climate agreement, so maybe we should implement that, but I guess we should do more. Let's start with the president of Mongolia, who first addressed the topic, what could we do together, seriously do together, in order to combat this problem. As I've already said, we live on the same planet. Those are all our mistakes. Those are all our problems. And today, waste has become a truly global problem. Just like air pollution, environmental pollution, there are companies with a certain status, and they should make a contribution into environmental protection. Perhaps they could dedicate 1% of their overall income in order to combat environmental damage. And we have a major company which contributed 1% of their revenue to the environmental foundation. So perhaps we could create a global environmental foundation and to call upon the companies to dedicate a certain percentage of their revenue to this foundation. Perhaps within the G20 or within the G7, we do not have another planet to spare, so we need to be responsible when we talk about our future.
Вы поставили задачу если мне не изменяет память, сейчас 2030.
And India, you have the task to make India the first country to use electric mobiles by 2030. But then you have to make them using coal, oil, gas. How could you combine that?
मैं मानता हूँ इस फोरम में जलवायु परिवर्तन की चिंता होना बहुत स्वाभाविक है और ज़रूरी भी है, और मैं आपको बधाई देता हूँ कि आपने इस महत्वपूर्ण मुद्दे को स्पर्श किया है। आज हमें जो कुछ भी नसीब हुआ है वो कभी न कभी हमारे पूर्वजों ने बचा के रखा था, उसके कारण हमें नसीब हुआ है। इंसान के नाते विश्व के किसी भी कोने में क्यों न रहते हो, हमने भी हमारी भावी पीढ़ी के लिए कुछ बचा के रखना होगा, उनके लिए विरासत में देकर के जाना होगा, ताकि वे भी सुख चैन की ज़िंदगी जी सकें। महात्मा गांधी ट्रस्टीशिप के सिद्धांत की चर्चा करते थे और वो हमेशा कहते थे, और उसी स्पिरिट से हमने भी सोचना चाहिए कि हम एक पृथ्वी के ट्रस्टी हैं। हमें हमारी उपयोगिता से अधिक किसी भी से छीनने का अधिकार नहीं है। अगर ये सिद्धांतों का पालन हम समाज व्यवस्था में ला सकते हैं, तब जाकर के इस समस्या का समाधान होगा। हम सोचते होंगे कि टेक्नोलॉजी से समस्या का समाधान होगा, सामूहिक मिलकर के रिजोल्यूशन करने से होगा। ये सबसे बड़ा हर इंडिविजुअल नागरिक के बिहेवियरल चेंज से जुड़ा हुआ विषय है, और उसमें एक सेंसिटिविटी होनी चाहिए कि उस दिशा में जाएं। हमने उस टेक्नोलॉजी को विकसित करना होगा। जैसे भारत ने COP21 में 175 गीगावाट रिन्यूएबल एनर्जी का लक्ष्य टारगेट किया, ताकि हम क्लाइमेट चेंज, ग्लोबल वार्मिंग की समस्या में कुछ पॉजिटिव कंट्रीब्यूशन करें, ताकि भविष्य में दुनिया को तकलीफ ना हो। आज मुझे गर्व से कहना है कि 175 गीगावाट में से हम काफ़ी मात्रा में सोलर एनर्जी की ओर शिफ्ट कर गए। काफ़ी हमने कंट्रीब्यूशन किया है, और जो टारगेट हमने तय किया है 2022 तक 175 गीगावाट रिन्यूएबल एनर्जी का, वो हम पूरा कर लेंगे। जहाँ तक मोबिलिटी का सवाल है, दुनिया को अभी से सोचना होगा कि हम इलेक्ट्रिक व्हीकल की तरफ, मोबिलिटी की तरफ कैसे ध्यान दें। लेकिन अगर मैं व्हीकल पर बल देता हूँ तो एक मार्केट और बिजनेस उसकी तरफ जाता है। हमारा फोकस है क्या भारत इलेक्ट्रिक व्हीकल के लिए बैटरी, और वो भी सोलर सिस्टम से रिचार्ज हो ऐसी बैटरी, उसका मैन्युफैक्चरिंग हब बन सकता है क्या। और इसलिए हमने हमारी जितनी भी नीतियां बना रहे हैं, उस नीतियों के केंद्र बिंदु में हम पहले प्रमोट करना चाहते हैं बैटरी का निर्माण। एक बार जैसे मोबाइल फ़ोन इसलिए पॉपुलर हुआ क्योंकि धीरे धीरे उसकी बैटरी छोटी होती गई और उस बैटरी की ताकत भी बढ़ती चली गई, 12 घंटे, 24 घंटे, 36 घंटे। उसके कारण मोबाइल फ़ोन की अफोर्डेबिलिटी बढ़ गई। वैसा ही इलेक्ट्रिक व्हीकल में भी बैटरी सबसे बड़ी महत्वपूर्ण विषय रहेगा। और एक मेरा मिशन और है भारत में क्लीन कुकिंग का। हमारे यहाँ करीब 250 फैमिलीज़ हैं, घर हैं जिसको कहें। 250 मिलियन अगर हमारे यहाँ ये है तो मुझे 250 मिलियन घरों के लिए क्लीन कुकिंग के लिए मैं सोलार सिस्टम से चलने वाली एनर्जी सिस्टम डेवलप करना चाहता हूँ। उनके लिए उसे बैटरी व्यवस्था विकसित करना चाहता हूँ ताकि सोलार सिस्टम से एनर्जी स्टोरेज भी हो और उसी से कुकिंग भी हो, ताकि हम एनवायरनमेंट को बहुत बड़ी मदद कर सकते हैं। मैंने इस क्षेत्र में काम करने वाली कंपनियों को चैलेंज रूट पर आने के लिए इनवाइट किया है। आप कल्पना कर सकते हैं कि 250 मिलियन इस प्रकार की बैटरियाँ ने बहुत बड़ा मार्केट है। अगर इस मार्केट को ध्यान में रखें तो कार मैन्युफैक्चरिंग के मार्केट को भी बहुत बड़ा उसके कारण एक प्रकार से क्रॉस सब्सिडाइज हो जाएगा। तो हम उस पर भी बल दे रहे हैं, लेकिन ये बात सही है कि मोबिलिटी के क्षेत्र में ये बहुत बड़ा बदलाव अनिवार्य है।
Prime Minister Abe, thank you for the compliments, because you're still burning coal, but there is no smoke. Have you seen coal stations in Japan? You should probably disseminate it around the world. The same question goes to you.
石炭については、この CO2 排出を削減する上でいろんな理論があるのは承知をしておりますが、しかし実際に石炭は世界に広く分布をしておりますし、インドや中国をはじめ新興国にとっては貴重な値段の安いエネルギー源であることは事実であります。今、お話があったように、日本の火力発電分野におけるこの技術、例えば、排熱利用や高温ガスタービンなどの技術によってですね、世界で最も高い効率を実現しています。
Japanese coal technologies are at the highest level. And in thermal stations, we have a standard 20% higher than around the world. And if we would use our technologies for fast-growing economies, then we could reduce the CO2 emissions.
And also in the future, we're going to use gasification and fuel elements, by this raising the efficiency by another 40%. And from the point of view of implementing the carbon-free society, we need some breakthrough innovations to do that. And in this particular regard, the key role will be played by hydrogen, which will not emit CO2. And in this regard, Japan, for the first time in the world, implemented these cars based on fuel element. And now in Fukushima, we are building a plant that will produce hydrogen. That is a major plant, the biggest plant. And next year, during the Olympic Games and Paralympic Games, we're going to use this hydrogen to control cars. The biggest issue with hydrogen is the high cost of it. But we have some long-term strategy that envisages lowering cost of hydrogen down to the level of natural gas by 10 times. We also have some plans of introducing technologies for the CO2 waste management, including artificial photosynthesis technologies. Therefore, Japan will be one of leaders in terms of innovation using the current technologies and state-of-the-art technologies. So it's a good thing that you've raised this issue. We've heard many times today some things that you were consonant about. What is the much promising history in Asia? So environmental protection. Yes, environmental protection is closely interlinked with energy. That is something that we've been talking about. Global warming also impacts Russia, among other countries. I mentioned it at G20 summit. Here in Russia, according to our data, according to international experts, the warming is moving at 2.5 times quicker than on the planet in general, and this poses a certain threat to us. First and foremost, in the north, where you were right to mention that the settlements are built on permafrost, and an issue occurs of what we are to do about that. But we support all the international efforts in this area. As you know, we've supported the Paris Agreement. We assumed rather considerable obligations to reduce emissions by about 70% from the base 1990 level, from the baseline level. By the way, the EU countries assumed a more modest obligation from the same, compared to the same baseline year. They assumed to reduce emissions by 60%. And by the way, we were talking about electric cars. Just now, the international organizations have recorded for the first time in history a drastic downfall in the sales of electric cars. There are certain reasons for that. But not only global warming is responsible for all the environmental issues that we have, there's also an issue of gas motor fuel. A lot of cars are used in big cities. They use this fuel. They use all sorts of fuel, including carbons, in the public utility system. This is all part of the program that we have prepared to improve the environmental situation in the country on the whole. This is just a part of the problem. At the same time, I would like to emphasize that globally, the structure of Russian energy is one of the greenest in the world. More than 1/3 of our energy accounts for hydroenergy and nuclear energy. And more than 50% goes for gas, which, as it is well known, is one of the most environmental kinds of fuel among all hydrocarbons. And we're a country rich in hydrocarbons. This is our competitive advantage, and we should never forget that we should make the best and efficient use of this competitive advantage. Well, we should not keep aside from the main trend. We have to think about what will happen tomorrow. We should also consider alternative energy sources, hydrogen energy, for example. Over the recent years, we've introduced about 800 megawatts of capacities based on renewable energy sources. We are working on that. By 2024, we plan to introduce 4.2 or 4.7 gigawatts of these capacities, renewable energy capacities. Just now, together with our Finnish partners, we have put into operation a wind park. We also work on solar energy. We believe this is a very good trend, and we will do our best to make sure our environmental plans are implemented. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Before thanking the participants of the session, I would like to thank the people of Vladivostok. First of all, this city has provided a lot of volunteers for this forum. We would like to thank them in particular. And Vladivostok has not only turned into a platform for this forum and the place where, please, dear delegates, spend as much money as you can here for the tax revenues for this city. But Vladivostok is also becoming a gate to Russia, to the Far East. So let's thank Vladivostok and its people in particular. Let's applaud them. And a special thanks goes to Prime Minister Abbot, Prime Minister Modi, President Batulga, President Putin for participating in this plenary session of the Eastern Economic Forum. See you again soon. Thank you.
Да, вот это нет. Там же был заходный.